Chapter 5280. Then the three little ones, tomorrow, I'll arrange for them to go to the preschool to study and train. I'll leave you for a while. These three little rascals were truly troublesome. His wife was not in good spirits recently, so it was best to let her rest and recuperate. Xiaomu yawned again and said with a nod, then keep a good eye on them. Recently, Mo, I don't know what she's up to. I saw her meditating for a long time. Forget it, just let her be. You worry too much. Everyone is doing quite well. You, on the other hand, must be well-nourished and be happy for me every day. Mo Yin cupped her small face and planted a kiss on her cheek. You're not allowed to make me worry. What I have to worry about? Arbor looked into the distance. Looking at the three little radishes playing together, he curled his lips in amusement. A 10,000-year-old bachelor actually gets along so well with two little kids. Emolian couldn't help but laugh. It's just that it sounds a little old. Actually, it's been suppressed in the abyss for so long, so it doesn't have any intelligence at all. Its intelligence is about the same as Kong Kong's. Then Kong Kong is much more mature than him. Arbor shook his head in amusement. It's pretty good to be a child. Arbor sighed softly. How could there be so many complicated things in a child's world? They could laugh and play, fight today, and make up tomorrow. Mo Yin reached out to pinch her nose. Relax, you're not allowed to think too much. Sir Jojo turned and bit him, tilting his head mischievously. Got it. Mo Yin stroked his chin, unsure whether to laugh or cry. On the other side, family head Qin stared at a maidservant who bowed and retreated after serving tea. He was so angry that he almost smashed the teacup in his hand to the ground. Qin Xian. Family head Qin sternly called his son's full name. Eldest young Master Qin was leaning lazily against the swing. His hand trembled when he was caught off guard by the old master's yell. He almost spilled all the wine from the wine glass he was holding. Father, what are you doing? Eldest young Sir Qin looked back helplessly at his unusually indignant old father and pursed his lips in exasperation. Father, it's bad for your liver to be angry. It's better for you to calm down a little. You also know that anger is harmful to the liver, and you also know that you should calm down your old father's emotions. Then why can't you work harder for your old father? Pack up and follow me back. Where are you going? Eldest young Sir Qin was rather exasperated. He stared at his father and said, Father, can you focus on your career and not meddle in your son's affairs? Qin was so angry that her teeth itched. What are you talking about? Don't tell me you want to betray the organization now that your wings have hardened? Qin Xian sighed. He put down the wine glass in his hand and stood up. Don't you take care of those matters in the organization? It won't collapse. Smoke rose from the top of Qin Hong's head as he roared angrily. After the failure of the kingdom of Daluo, you also have to think of countermeasures for the future. Don't forget, Forefather has high hopes for you two brothers. Qin Xian's eyes flashed. I understand, Father. Qin Hong was even angrier when he saw his son's poor attitude. The problem was, what was the use of just knowing? If he didn't take action, everything would be zero. Xian don't forget our mission. Qin Hong looked at him seriously and said, Don't be muddle-headed. Chapter 5281. You mustn't give up your bright future because of a woman. Father, what are you saying? Eldest young Sir Qin interrupted him with a grin. Don't you understand my temperament? He understood this son of his too well. He looked like he was indulging in debauchery. If he had always been like this to all women, then he would be at ease. But now, he felt that this punk treated that damn bitch differently. He could tell during the previous incident at the Red River Canyon. Back then, he sent so many people and used so many spirit stone cannons in order to annihilate the little Stoics group in one fell swoop. His primary target was actually that Stoic face. He wanted to kill this uncertain factor, but with her standing in the way, he felt that his two sons weren't that reliable when working for the organization. They were bound by her influence. As long as she died, everything would be easy to handle in the future. Moreover, he indeed wanted to kill those elite disciples from the patrician families. The best method was to capture the corpses and use corpse poison without restraint to see how valiant these mutated elite disciples could be. In the end, because Boss sent Gong Song Feng the underground hall's hall master, to intervene. The entire operation was completely bound and couldn't operate normally. Letting the tiger return to the mountain would lead to endless trouble. This was why he was so vexed. Later on, he kept wanting to kill this stoic face, but things always went against his wishes. This also included the fact that his two sons sabotaged the operation. The more they valued this stoic face, the angrier he became. Fortunately, this matter hadn't been exposed to the ancestor yet. If the ancestor knew, they probably wouldn't end well either. Father, don't worry. Give me some time to think it over. I promise to help you think of a good way to oppose the imperial court. Eldest young Sir Qin said to his old father with a chuckle. It's best that you can think this way. Qin Hong reminded him worriedly. The matter in the state of Daluo was a complete failure. I think there's no need to continue with that Lilier plan. Eldest young Sir Qin's eyes flickered, and he softly made a sound of agreement. Qin Hong suddenly paused, and he abruptly turned to stare at his eldest son. Do you know where your second brother went? These two brats were like dogs biting dogs all day long. On the surface, they were polite, but on the inside, they were wrestling with each other. He didn't know where his second son had gone, but it was impossible for his eldest son to not know, because his eldest son would definitely keep an eye on his second son's movements. Qin Yu seemed to have thought of something and cried out involuntarily. Could it be that second brother has gone to the Pingjin Prairie? He went to exterminate those Lily? Otherwise, why would they suddenly lose track of their whereabouts, without any news at all? This meant that second brother was not in the imperial capital at all. The old nest of the country of Daluo had already been annihilated once by the Tsang Prefecture's emperor. Now it was pretty much in decline. However, Lily Er's hidden base had always been well hidden and had never been discovered. Only his family knew where Lily Er's experimental base was. He's crazy. Qin Hong shuddered and hurriedly walked out. No, he had to stop his son. His actions were tantamount to betraying the entire Sky Fate organization. If the old ancestor knew about this, Qin Hong could not imagine how the old ancestor would punish his outstanding son. Chapter 5282. He couldn't let his son be ruined by a woman. Father. Eldest young Sir Qin flashed in front of him and said with a smile, Why are you so flustered? You knew long ago, didn't you? When did he leave? Tell me. Hurry up and tell me. He set off the night before yesterday. The base should be in ruins by now, the eldest young Sir said with a smile. Why did you do that? Qin Mu reprimanded angrily. Father, don't you think those things are disgusting? Eldest young Sir Qin blinked innocently. I want to gouge out their eyeballs the first time I saw them. You guys, Qin Hong muttered to himself. Crazy, really crazy, crazy. No matter how bad those things were, they were nurtured by Tianyan. They were also part of the organization. Even if they were to be destroyed, it shouldn't be his second son who personally led people to destroy them. Only when the old ancestor gave the order that he didn't want these things could they be destroyed. But now he muttered to himself, What the hell was this? Your second uncle found out about this. Second uncle has always been serving the patriarch. If father doesn't say anything, I don't say anything, and we don't say anything. Who will know? Your second uncle has been eyeing my position this whole time. Qin Mu reprimanded angrily. If he finds out, you should know what will happen to your second brother. Don't worry, father. He won't find out. Qin Mu shook his head fiercely, still muttering, Crazy, you guys are really crazy. What exactly is so good about that stoic face that you guys treat her like this? No matter how well you treat her, you are still enemies in that stoic face's eyes. Do you understand? Eldest young, Sir Qin nodded obediently. MHM, I know. Father, don't worry too much. Go back. How about staying for dinner before leaving? Qin Hong forcefully flung his son's hand away and angrily turned to stride out. He said hatefully, You two brothers will be buried in this vicious woman's hands sooner or later. Eldest young Sir Qin watched his father leave aggrievedly. He turned to exchange a glance with Fan Meng, who was standing silently behind him. Why is father so impatient? Old clan head is also worried about young master. Fan Meng said slowly. Do you think the little stoic will kill me? He muttered softly as if he was talking to himself, but also as if he was asking Fan Meng. After a long while, he still didn't hear Fan Meng reply. Qin Xian curiously turned around to look at him, only to see that he was lost in thought, and his thoughts were nowhere to be found. A cool breeze blew past. Zhao Qiran had already stopped dancing and was currently gazing at the northern sky, lost in thought. Far away, in a secret place in the black gold swamp of the Pingjin Prairie, the flames that filled the sky dyed half of the sky red. Qin Xen led Dugu Ling and the others to the entrance of the cave, looking coldly at the group of women who were crying in a mess. The entrance of the cave had been completely sealed off by iron pillars. At this moment, the women were all blocking the entrance of the cave. They were crying and wailing across the red-hot iron pillars. They didn't care that their hands were pressed against the pillars, and their skin and flesh were already burnt to a crisp. Their eyes were filled with terror as they cried and begged for mercy, howling loudly. The faces were all squeezed at the entrance of the cave, struggling to breathe in the fresh air. Chapter 52-83. Unfortunately, none of them were able to come out. Even when one of them reached out and tried to pry open an iron pillar, she was hit by a lightning bolt. But soon, she realized that her hand had been hit by someone. Her entire arm fell into the fire and was burned away in an instant. "I can finally burn these things," young Master Omega Katoku said expressionlessly. A light chuckle came from behind. "I was wondering why it was so lively here. So they were burning corpses." The second young master's gaze turned severe, and he coldly turned around to look at the young man who raised his hand to greet him. "Why is family headlong here? Second young master doesn't need to guard against me." Long Yin waved his hand at him with a grin. "I'm not interested in your Qin estate's internal strife, and I won't speak carelessly to others and expose second young master's movements." Young Master Omega Katoku stared at him coldly. And then, nothing. Long Yun was still chuckling as he glanced at the second young master and said, "I was just passing by and was slightly curious when I saw the thick smoke here. Passing by, you freaking passed by the River of Forgetfulness and came to the Pingjin Prairie. Do you think others are stupid, or are you stupid? What kind of path did you take?" Long Yin took the opportunity to look forward and clicked his tongue repeatedly. "It seems that all these Lily are here. Second young master is indeed generous to dispose of all the Lily in one go. If the little stoic knew about this, she would definitely be very happy." Sikong Fulling, who was following behind young Master Long, harumphed and muttered inwardly, "Happy my ass." Regardless of whether she was happy or unhappy, her eternally unchanging stoic face was always cold and infuriating. Family headlong is also quite generous. Young Master Omega Katoku glanced at him meaningfully. "Unifying the River of Forgetfulness in just a few short months, your methods are truly outstanding." "You flatter me. It's just that the Long clan of Forgetfulness has a great foundation, and I'm merely inheriting the foundation of my ancestors." "Ha ha." Omega Katoku glanced at him coldly. "You're too modest, Master Long. You are now the family head of the Forgotten River Dragon Clan." He was also the leader of the demon sect. Being overly humble was equivalent to being arrogant. Omega Katoku said coldly, "The Wangchuan Duo clan only exists in name. The other two small aristocratic families of the River of Forgetfulness are no match for your Dragon Clan. Aside from Murong of the River of Forgetfulness, you, as the head of the Long family, can be considered the most powerful family in the River of Forgetfulness." "Ayaya, I didn't expect second young master to praise me like this." Long Yin laughed heartily, looking very happy. "As expected of my partner, your analysis is on point." Second young master said expressionlessly, "What are you doing here? Don't talk about passing by, it was on the way." "So fake." Long Yin blinked and chuckled as he nodded. All right. Let's be frank with each other. As for me, I happened to pass by the Tsang Prefecture 2 days ago and noticed that someone was acting strangely." Young Master Omega Katoku's eyes flickered. "Couldn't Duan Yu be kinder? What kind of trouble was he up to now? He was even more detestable than when he was in the lower star domain." He would jump out from time to time like a cockroach that couldn't be killed. Right, you didn't guess wrong. That person is acting strangely. That person gathered 30,000 elite troops from the 3 prefectures and personally led the troops. From the direction I saw, they seemed to be heading straight for the City of Shadows. Chapter 5284. That 30,000 soldiers is merely an overt move. I feel that with this guy's black-bellied level, it's impossible for him to only bring 30,000 people over. He must have set up many spies, and he might have even secretly ordered people to bring another 300,000 soldiers as reinforcements. Duguling's small fan nearly fell from his hand. He revealed a shocked expression. It can't be that bad, right? Would His Majesty of Tsang Province be so shameless? With the elites of the 3 provinces gathered, 30,000 soldiers are still not enough to take down a City of Shadows? He wants to secretly cause a commotion with 300,000 soldiers? No way. Did he have to be like this? Do you know what he can do when he's shameless? Long Yun chuckled. We have to guard against him, don't we? The second young master expressionlessly said, it's not like he's shameless for the first time. He and that MO fellow were simply different tunes to the same effect. They were both shameless people and were more adept at deceiving others. Duguling hastily picked up his small fan and waved it. Then are we going over? Of course we're going. Family Head Long revealed a warm-hearted expression. But we can't just go like this. We have to make all the necessary preparations before going. Duguling glanced at him. It seems you already have a very good plan? Tell me, the second young master coldly said. We can lure the enemy deep into the city and then encircle and annihilate them one by one. Long Yun's smile deepened. Duguling's eyes widened. You mean we're going to use the empty fort strategy and invite the enemy into the trap? Young Master Dugu is brilliant, Long Yun praised. It was so effortless to talk to smart people. He only had to say the first half, and the other party could immediately guess the second half. Young Master Omega Kotoko glanced at him and said aloofly, I can tell you very responsibly that this isn't a bad idea. However, Duan Yu isn't a fool and might not fall for your trap. That's not true. That's not true. The more conceited and intelligent a person is, the less likely they are to consider everything thoroughly. That person is also like that. Young Master Omega Kotoku's expression involuntarily flickered when he heard this, and he quietly said, Then this young master will wait and see. In the knockoff Tower of Punishment, as soon as Arbor entered the first floor, he saw the residual shadow of the small tree swaying back and forth on the opposite wall. The branches were swaying and dancing, and the residual shadow was emitting weird laughter. He felt as if he had entered the first level of hell. It's me. Arbor rolled his eyes weakly. Chochio's afterimage immediately stopped swaying and asked in a methodical manner, Master, please feel free to look around. From the 1st to the 12th floor, each floor has a new experience. Which floor is Shinto Jing on? Shinto Jing is now in the 6th layer of the Forest of Thousand Blades. Arbor said expressionlessly, Send me there. In the blink of an eye, he was already standing at the entrance of the 6th floor. Looking into Arbor, the simulated environment was really a small forest, however. What was hanging on the tree were not leaves, but small, shiny throwing knives. He saw Shinto Jing hanging from a huge tree on the verge of death. Her entire body was bleeding, and it was impossible to see how many small bloody holes there were on her body. You said she was looking for me? That's right, Master. She said she wanted to tell you something and begged you to give her a straightforward way to die. It looked like this Shinto Jing was really screwed over by the sapling Chochio to actually say something like this. Chapter 5285. Chochio, wake her up, Arbor said. Yes, Master. The little treant abruptly hopped on the ground and stomped its tiny feet. Several thin, sharp blades fell from the top of Shinto Jing's head and pierced through the back of her ears with a few whooshes. A squeal akin to a pig being slaughtered abruptly rang out. Shinto Jing couldn't help but shudder. When she opened her eyes and saw the little stoic's expressionless face, she actually heaved a sigh of relief and wailed mournfully, Crown Princess, I've thought about it, and remembered the location of Lilier's base. I'll tell you right now. This is the last thing I know. I've already told you everything I know. Please finish me off immediately, Crown Princess. Give me a quick death. Arbor blinked. She didn't expect that the knockoff Tower of Punishment that Sapling set up would actually frighten a demoness to the point of crying and even repeatedly asking for death. Sapling was truly capable. Arbor glanced at Chio, who had its head held high and was pacing back and forth with its hands on its hips, and couldn't resist saying, although your Tower of Punishment is a knockoff. But now, it looks rather formidable. That's only natural, Master. Chio shouted with its hands on its hips. Don't look down on my Tower of Punishment. My Tower of Punishment is only a few levels lower than the one set up by heavenly law. Emrich. Arbor hooked her finger at it. Chio jumped in her palm. Arbor stroked it and paused for a moment before suddenly asking, did you hear strange cries? Oh, it should be coming from the realm of misfortune. Sapling waved its branches without being surprised. Do you still remember, Master? Earlier, you sucked that duo clan member into the heart of misfortune along with a large ship. Emrich, I remember. Arbor nodded. It was a bit shameful to say that after absorbing the entire fiery nightmare ship, the heart of misfortune was in a saturated state and couldn't absorb anything else. Jojo, Sama completely forgot about it, of course. She wouldn't tell Chio that she had long forgotten about this matter. So Chio couldn't see anything from her stoic little face. She answered with a serious expression and even nodded her head in a serious manner. Chio thought that little Master really remembered this matter, so it jumped up and down enthusiastically and continued. You kept that duo in the realm of misfortune. That unlucky guy gets beaten up by a bunch of wooden people in the realm of misfortune every day. Sometimes, when he escaped, he would run into the 5 disciples of the City of Shadows and get beaten up. I think he's pretty miserable. He's even more miserable than Shinajing. Arbor glanced at Chio expressionlessly. Chio's beady eyes suddenly widened as it let out a strange cry. Master Silver, did you forget? You don't even remember the name of that duo something, right? Also, you don't remember the 5 disciples of the City of Shadows either, do you? You took their souls and told them to train in the realm of misfortune until they broke through to the godly realm. Then, you would let them out. They had already broken through to the godly realm level 6 or 7 not long ago, but you haven't done anything yet. I thought you were still unsatisfied with their cultivation, but I didn't expect you to have completely forgotten about them. Heavens, his little master's memory was so bad. Baby Chio was so anxious. Chapter 5286. Needless to say, looking at Master's expressionless but actually blank little face, Chio already knew that this fellow had completely forgotten everything. It was said that pregnancy makes one stupid for 3 years. Master was also Master. Chio sang and hung on a strand of her hair, crying as it tugged at her long hair. You can't be stupid for 3 years after pregnancy. Chio's heart will ache. Sob, sob, sob. What are you sobbing about? Arbor's mouth twitched, resisting the urge to slap this little imp away. She secretly told herself to calm down, calm down. This was Chio, the most important little friend in her life. She couldn't slap him, she couldn't slap him. She raised her hand and took out the heart of misfortune from her inner world. I'll go in and take a look, she said expressionlessly. Master, the environment inside is too bad. Not to mention the yellow sand everywhere. You even kept some corpse poison sand inside. Although these things won't attack you, it's still dirty. You still shouldn't go in. Just drag them out. Arbor thought about it and felt that little tree's words made sense. Thus, she expressionlessly glanced inside the heart of misfortune. With this glance, her little jaw almost dropped in shock. What did she see? A wild man running wildly. Chio. Arbor suddenly shouted. He's covered in tree bark and has a tree branch in his hand. Is he being beaten by a bunch of wooden men? Chio said stiffly. Those are the mechanical wooden men that senior apprentice brother Tion Tuzi made. I really sympathize with this duo something. He's being beaten by 17 to 18 mechanical wooden men every day. He's pretty miserable. Chocho, what's his name again? Master Silver. Even you have forgotten his name. How could I possibly remember? Chocho rolled its eyes speechlessly. Arbor thought so too. She sighed and said to Chocho, "Where are my 5 subordinates? Why don't I see them?" "Master, why don't you take a closer look? This realm of misfortune isn't big, but it's not small either. Do you see that boat?" When Xiaomu saw that large fire nightmare ship, she looked up at the deck. Sure enough, she saw 5 disciples from the city of shadows meditating with their heads lowered. It seemed that the fiery nightmare ship, which had a lot of supplies, had been taken over by the 5 lean disciples. This was the path of the strong. Although the ship originally belonged to Dor or something, in this environment, he couldn't defeat the 5 disciples of the City of Shadows at all. Arbor nodded, his voice faintly entering the ears of the 5 City of Shadows disciples. "The 5 of you have all met my requirements. I can release you now." The 5 disciples of the City of Shadows opened their eyes at the same time. A trace of excitement flashed across their eyes. Actually, if the 5 of them were to be said to have been rather disapproving and resentful at the beginning, then they would have been very dissatisfied. As time passed, their ranks rapidly increased in the realm of misfortune. They didn't have any resentment or thoughts anymore. They weren't particularly elite disciples in the City of Shadows. Compared to those outstanding disciples, the 5 of them were nothing at all. Therefore, they were very clear that the realm of misfortune was a powerful place for cultivation. It might also have something to do with the elixirs that their little master had given them. With the help of the elixirs, the environment, and their own efforts, each of them had a qualitative and rapid improvement. Chapter 5287. This meant that there was no need for them to resent this matter. It was true that they had handed over a strand of their soul, but in reality, they had received countless benefits. If it had been any other time, they might not have been able to improve to this level even after 10, 20, 30 years. By now, they were already completely convinced of his strength. As long as they did not have any second thoughts, their future would be smooth sailing. The 5 of them only felt the scenery in front of them change, and they appeared in a dark green forest. But upon closer inspection, they realized that there were thin green blades hanging from the trees above and all around them. The 5 of them did not dare to ask any more questions and bowed respectfully with cupped fists. "Greetings, Master." Arbor nodded slightly and glanced at the 5 of them. "The speed of your improvement is not bad." Arbor said, "Now I can let you out to do something for me." "Thank you, Master." The 5 of them were overjoyed and cupped their fists together. "From now on, you will be called E1, E2, E3, E4, E5. Sir Jojo said expressionlessly. In the future, all the people cultivated in the realm of misfortune would start with the word E, so she would not forget it. "Thank you, Master, for giving us names." Although the names were not much, the fact that their master had given them names meant that he approved of them, and the 5 of them were somewhat happy. Arbor said, "You should be very familiar with the geography of the City of Shadows. I want you to set off immediately and head to the Tsang Prefecture military camp. I've already informed them. Once the 5 of you arrive, just head straight to the camp. Once you're there, someone will naturally receive you and tell you what to do." The 5 of them bowed in unison without any objections. "Yes, Master." Arbor nodded with satisfaction. "I'll let the Blue Phoenix send the 5 of you on your way. Go now." With a wave of his hand, he released the 5 of them from the Star region. The 5 of them looked back and saw that a young man had been waiting by the side for a long time. "Come on up." The Blue Phoenix let out a cry and revealed its beast form. The 5 people on its back did not say anything unnecessary and immediately set off on their way out of the Eastern Palace. When the guards saw the divine bird pass by, they only raised their heads to look at it. "Master, did you send the 5 of them to the Tsang Prefecture Emperor to help?" "Yes. After all, they stayed in the City of Shadows for a long time, so they should be very familiar with everything there. With them leading the way, it should be more efficient." "Master, are you worried about the Tsang Prefecture Emperor?" "What am I worried about?" The little stoic said haughtily. "He's just a transcendence realm cultivator. Is there a need for me to worry about him?" "Humph. The pitiful Chio, who had been rebuked in the face, silently shut his little mouth. Of course, Masta time, of course of that song was for M.O. to beat song to that song. Master of a song, master of to be, to forget to the song to be, to forget to song. Arbor glared at song and casually released a savage with a wave of his hand. This savage still did not know that the environment had changed and jumped in front of Xiao Mu. He was still waving the branch in his hand as he muttered, Scoundrel, you wouldn't trash dare to gang up on me? See if I don't kill you." This person was dressed in tree bark and was barefooted as he waved a withered branch in front of him. Chapter 5288. Arbor glanced at him and said indifferently, "What's your name?" She had no choice. She really had forgotten this person's name. She only knew that he was an ignorant Duo clan member, but now the Duo clan was almost completely wiped out in the battle with the Dragon Clan of Forgetfulness. Her grudge with Forgetfulness had also ended with the appearance of Long Xuanji and the migration of the Dragon Clan members to the Cold Valley of Forgetfulness. As for how the Dragon Clan of Forgetfulness were punished by Ding Yun had nothing to do with her. She couldn't be bothered to intervene in the grudge between Ding Yun and the Dragon Clan of Forgetfulness. She didn't even intend to care. There was always a cause and effect. Who could say for sure what the cause and effect were? Duo Shanming initially thought that he had heard wrongly. He couldn't even remember how long it had been since he last heard this hateful voice. He turned his head abruptly, his eyes flickering with renewed emotions. He stared at Arbor in front of him and shouted sternly, It's you, woman." He remembered this damned woman. This damned woman. This ghost-like woman had left him in that nightmarish place for so long, causing him to eat sand and stones all day long and unable to sleep well. How could she do such a thing? How big was it that she had to punish him like this? Women were vicious and vengeful. She would immediately take revenge on such a small matter and even torture him to death. Arbor glanced at him. Chio is here." The little tree ant waved its branches and rushed forward, jumping up without a word. It stretched out 2 small branches and waved them at Duo Shanming's face. "Master is asking you a question. Why are you staring at her instead of answering? Look at your unconvinced expression. What, do you want to take revenge? I think you're looking for shit in the latrine. Let me tell you, it's impossible for you to take revenge." The little tree ant punched him twice in the face. "First of all, you can't get past me." Duo Shanming was furious. After being beaten up by the little tree ant, he shouted, "You woman, I only offended you once or twice. How dare you take revenge on me like this? Do you need to be so vengeful? Vengeful? Stinky man, how dare you scold my little master? I think you're really tired of living." The little tree ant raised its 2 black beady eyes and pounced forward. Its 2 branches formed a green halo and smashed towards Duo Shanming's head with a bang. Duo Shanming was so scared that he fell to the ground. He could sense that the mighty power of the tree spirit was not something that someone of his level could resist. Other than waiting for death or begging for mercy, he had no other choice. Before Duo Shanming could say, "Spare my life," yet Xiao Mu waved her hand and directly picked up that irascible tree ant. "What are you getting angry at a fool for?" The little Trent's green halo failed to smash down and nodded. "Yes, what's there to be angry about with a fool?" The little fellow's eyes narrowed, emitting black flames. "He dared to scold you, so I'm going to beat him to death." "All right, I'll ask him." Arbor pacified the little tree ant and turned to look in Duo Shanming's direction. "You haven't answered my previous question," the little stoic asked aloofly. Chapter 5289. Duo Shanming's originally despondent arrogance rose again. He gritted his teeth and said, "You actually don't even remember my name. Then why did you fucking capture me and throw me into that kind of land filled with yellow sand?" The irritable tree ant was angry again. It flew out of Sir Qiao's hands and stepped on Duo Shanming's head, stomping hard twice. "Why are you talking so much nonsense? Answer whatever I ask you. Tell me, what's your name?" Although the tree ant was short and looked weak, it was still able to withstand the pressure. Who would have thought that the strength behind that kick would be so great that it nearly crushed his head off? Duo Shanming was indignant, but he didn't have the strength to fight against the little treant. He could only say sullenly, Duo Shanming. The little treant stretched out a small branch and jumped onto Arbor's shoulder. Master, I remember now. He has an older sister. I met her in the Lotus Realm of the Forgetfulness Pond before. I think she's called Duo Shanmei. Arbor nodded expressionlessly. Seeing its little master's expression, the little treant couldn't help but roll its black eyes. Well, no matter what Duo Shanming or Duo Shanmei, Master definitely didn't remember anything. Arbor stared at Duo Shanming for a while. Is this person the one who drove a big ship to crash into us in the Forgetfulness Pond? Yes, it's the Fire Nightmare ship that Master kept in the realm of misfortune. The little treant glanced at the unlucky Duo Shanming. Speaking of which, this guy was really unlucky. After being thrown into the realm of misfortune by his master, he completely forgot about it. It wasn't until a few months later that he remembered, of course. It was because of Chocho's reminder. Otherwise, he reckoned that it would take years before Master would remember this idiot. Duo Shanming shuddered from head to toe as he stole a glance at Xiaomu. Realm of misfortune? For what the trance said, the broken place where he was previously, with yellow sand covering the sky and rocks everywhere, was actually a realm of misfortune. But this woman, what method did she use to stuff him into that realm of misfortune? And now, how did she bring him out? Duo Shanming carefully looked at his surroundings. At first, he thought he was in a mountain forest, but when he took a closer look, he was shocked. It turned out that the leaf-like green objects above his head were actually thin, sharp blades. What was going on? Could it be that he was still not standing in the outside world? Arbor paused for a long time before responding with an "oh." Chocho looked at her curiously. Master, how should we deal with this person? Continue throwing them in? The little stoic waved her hand disinterestedly. As if struck by lightning, Duo Shanming hurriedly took a step back. His eyes stared cautiously at the stoic face, and his voice was almost mournful. What did you say? You've locked me up for so long? Why couldn't they call it even? You woman, how can you be so vicious? I'm not leaving. I'm not leaving. I'm not leaving. Duo Shanming yelled. Arbor blinked his big eyes and had a strange expression on his face. Are you sure? I'm very sure, Duo Shanming shouted angrily. He really regretted it now. Back then, because he failed to marry Wu Chunhua, he bore a grudge against her father, Wu Cheng. In order to spite Wu Cheng, he purposely made him drive his ship to crash into this woman's ship. Who would have thought that this crash would bring him such bad luck? He regretted it very much, but there was nothing he could do. Chapter 5290. That was why it was said that a petty thing like a woman really couldn't be offended casually. Otherwise, the consequences would be dire. Arbor looked up and down at Duo Shanming with some astonishment. That kind of caring gaze made Duo Shanming's heart burn with anger. My father won't let you go. Duo Shanming roared angrily. Don't think that you can keep me here for the rest of my life. Arbor curved the corner of her lips. Locking this person in the star domain, Duo Shanming's father would never be able to find this son of a bitch. Besides, Duo Shanming's father, Duo Chong, had already run away with his tail between his legs after the Battle of Forgetting River. He couldn't even protect himself. How could he think of such a son? Arbor couldn't be bothered with his hoarse roar and looked back at him. You really don't want to leave? Thinking back, Duo Shanming was full of regret. He might as well go to the yellow sand to eat sand. No wonder this vicious woman had looked at him as if he was an idiot. He actually strongly requested to stay in this tower of punishment, to stay in this devil's land. Call me when you admit your mistake. Arbor looked at him meaningfully. In this world, not everyone will tolerate your willfulness. Arbor carried the small tree Chocho and left, leaving Duo Shanming alone. Duo Shanming angrily shouted at the place where she disappeared. Do you think I will submit to a vicious woman like you? Stop dreaming. Half an hour later, Duo Shanming hugged his head and cried bitterly on the ground, trembling as he looked at the rustling trees around him. Let me out! Let me out! I admit my mistake. I admit defeat. I admit my mistake. I admit my mistake. Please let me out. Your Excellency, please let me out. In just half an hour, he was cut by the blades of the thousand-knife forest to the point where he wished he was dead. The skin all over his body was almost bleeding. It was just that the bleeding was very slow, and the cuts on his skin were not deep. But it was the terrible feeling of a blunt knife cutting his flesh that kept provoking his nerves. He did not know what the rules of this saber forest were. He did not know when the next wave of sabers would fall. The feeling of waiting for death was unbearable. "Master, how long do you think he can last?" Chocho asked with a strange expression. He never thought that there would be a fool who would insist on staying on the 6th floor of the Tower of Punishment. It was rather comical. No wonder Master Silver had been looking at that person as if he was an idiot. This was truly foolish to the extreme. The Master Silver had asked him several times already, but this fool was still stubborn and insisted on staying. It was really fated, and there was no one to blame. 2 days later, at the boundary of Spirit Peak Valley, in front of a large camp, many soldiers were setting up camp in an orderly manner amidst the chaos and cooking. Duan Yu was sitting inside the tent in a daze as he held a jade messenger talisman in his hand. Suddenly, he heard a clear and resonant cry coming from outside the tent, and his spirits involuntarily perked up. He hurriedly opened the curtain and walked out, looking up at the sky. He saw a large bird with green wings rapidly flying over from the other side of the sky. In the blink of an eye, it arrived in the sky above the large tent. Countless soldiers rushed over from all directions. They were ready for battle, and their faces were cold and solemn. The soldiers of the archery camp vigilantly raised their bows and aimed at the sky. Duan Yu hastily waved his hand. "Withdraw, don't move. Let him come over." Chapter 52-91. The soldiers in the outer ring retreated slightly and put away their bows and weapons in unison. Upon closer inspection, they actually saw that the cyan bird seemed to be carrying 5 people on its back. Qingwan let out a cry and swooped down. In the blink of an eye, it transformed into a human and stood there with a straight back. The other 5 people also swiftly flew over and stood behind Qingwan, respectfully bowing to this Tsang province's emperor. Duan Yu's heart stirred, and he asked softly, "Do you have a letter?" Qingwan glanced at him and dug around in her sleeve for a long time before taking out a crumpled letter. She looked at him in confusion. "How did you know there was a letter?" "I guessed." Duan Yu took the letter and skimmed through it. The little stoic actually wrote quite a lot. Those 5 people's origins and experiences informed him, as well as some of her plans. She even left a message at the end, telling him to pay attention to his safety. Duan Yu's lips curled up, and he untied a jade ornament from his waist and tossed it to Qingwan. "Give it to her." Qingwan's expression was a bit conflicted. If Crown Prince the Great found out about this, he would definitely skin him alive. Wasn't this just a private exchange? Flirting with eyes? Bah, a jade ornament to express his feelings? No way, absolutely no way. "What are you thinking about? It's for my godson." Duan Yu waved his hand. "Go." When Qingwan turned around and flew away, her mind was still a bit muddled. What the hell was a godson? Who was his godson? Why did he give something to his godson to Master Silver for baby M.O.? The figure that was flying all the way suddenly tilted. Qingwan almost fell from the sky, flying crookedly all the way. Pitiful Crown Prince the Great, his son hadn't even been born yet, but half of him was already snatched away. Starfire illuminated the night, and the moonlight was as warm as water. 30,000 elites from the 3 provinces set up camp here to settle down. Although there were many people, the entire army was silent. Only the occasional crackling of barbecued food could be heard. After Duan Yu entered the tent, he held that letter in a daze for a long time. Several hidden guards paced back and forth outside, exchanging glances with each other. One of them couldn't hold it in anymore and simply flipped open the tent to enter. His Majesty was sitting in front of the desk, thinking about something, and had yet to come back to his senses. "Your Majesty," the shadow guard hurriedly called out and stepped back to let a soldier come in to light the lamp. After the lights lit up, Duan Yu also returned to his senses. He nodded at them and said, "Serve the meal." The few shadow guards heaved a sigh of relief and hurriedly asked people to send in the food and drinks. Actually, it didn't make much of a difference to Duan Yu whether he ate or not. However, these elite soldiers of the three prefectures had somehow developed the habit of eating 3 meals a day, so he just let nature take its course. More than 80% of them had broken through to the god realm and were god masters. It didn't matter how often they ate. This 3-meal problem reminded him of his Joe. When Charles raised these soldiers on the snowy island, it must be those weird subordinates of Charles who raised the elites of the 3 provinces. They were all following his Chiao. Just looking at them made him feel incomparably close. So be if you eat. It won't waste much food or spend a few spirit coins. Duan Yu picked up his chopsticks and ate a few mouthfuls before expressionlessly putting down his chopsticks. Why is it so noisy outside? The few hidden guards also heard it. That clamor was not far from the camp, and it sounded like a woman's shriek. It was ear-piercing. Chapter 5292. This subordinate will go take a look right now. Soon, Ing brought back news. Your Majesty, it's a group of bandits who caught 2 women and passed by here. Duan Yu replied with an "oh." Seeing that he didn't continue, everyone knew that he didn't want to meddle in other people's business. However, the sudden increase in the volume of the crying caused the camp to become a bit chaotic. Ing swiftly dashed out of the tent and coldly looked at the 2 women who were rampaging inside the camp. Duan Yu walked to his side and expressionlessly looked at the rowdy scene. Several bare-chested, burly men were furiously whipping at the 2 women with rods and whips. The 2 women wailed and stumbled before abruptly pouncing toward the large tent. Ing instantly pulled out the sword at his waist and held it in front of him. If the 2 women had taken one more step forward, they would have thrown themselves onto the sword and died. Seeing this, the 2 women wailed and fell to the ground with a plop. They simultaneously looked up and raised their hands, begging bitterly, "Save me, Your Majesty." When Prince Qing's heir, Rong Qing, hurried over with his men, he saw his good king staring expressionlessly at the 2 women on the ground. 8th young Sir Qi Rue, followed behind Rong Qing and said with a chuckle, "Don't act in front of His Majesty. Let alone His Majesty. Even we can see through these little tricks with a glance." Prince Rong walked up and questioned with a frown, "Why didn't you surround them? Let them barge in front of His Majesty?" The surrounding soldiers crowded forward with sharp gazes and turned their swords and spears around to aim at the 2 women sprawled on the ground. The dozen or so bandits who barged into the camp. Those people were startled and dumbfounded. 8th young Sir Qi said with a chuckle, "Everyone, don't tell me you think that the elites of the 3 provinces are so weak that you rookies can casually charge in. How can you be so naive and pure?" 8th young Sir Qi chuckled. "If it weren't for Prince Rong's signal to let you people in, do you think you could enter the center of the large tent in this important camp?" One of the bandits gritted his teeth and deliberately put on a smile. "Everyone, is there some misunderstanding? We came here by accident because we wanted to catch these 2 runaway women." Rong Qing glanced at the person who spoke and waved her hand. Dozens of swords and sabers were pressed against the man's back. As long as he uttered another word, the swords and sabers would pierce his back. 30,000 elite troops from 3 prefectures are stationed here, all pointing their swords and sabers at you. No matter how skilled and courageous a person was, he couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat and his heartbeat quickened. These people were actually able to tell at a glance that they were not trespassing unintentionally, but had done so intentionally. So the chaos in front of the camp just now was to lure them into the important area of the camp so that they could catch the turtle in the jar. Duan Yu's sharp gaze shifted slightly. The group of soldiers immediately got into formation and charged forward. In a short while, they killed the group of bandits until only 2 were left. The Emperor of Sangzhou didn't even blink when he dealt with so many people in a matter of minutes. His merciless and cold demeanor scared the remaining 2 bandits to the point that their hearts trembled. "Can you tell me now? What did the City of Shadows send you here for?" some young sir asked with a grin. One of the bandits knelt on the ground with a plop and repeatedly kowtowed to beg for mercy. Your Majesty, spare my life. Your Majesty, please spare my life. Chapter 5293. This lowly one is only an ordinary disciple of the City of Shadows. Yes, Master instructed me to investigate the situation and find out what's going on. And Master said, looking down from the reflection wall, there seems to be a figure moving. It seems that Spirit Peak Valley has infiltrated. That's right, I've long heard of it. The City of Shadows is extremely high, and the reflection wall at the back mountain can see everything within 1,000 kilometers. Realization dawned on 8th young Master Chi's face. No wonder someone immediately came to scout the situation as soon as they arrived at Spirit Peak Valley. Presumably, the City Lord of the City of Shadows was already aware of their arrival. Duan Yu swept an indifferent glance over them and raised his hand slightly before turning to enter. Soon, for wretched screams were heard outside the tent. Morale was greatly boosted, and roars boomed like thunder. His Majesty has ordered that we rest on the ground for 2 hours before setting off for the City of Shadows overnight. They should be able to reach the City of Shadows gates by daybreak. However, since the other party was already aware of their movements, they would obviously be on guard. They just didn't know what would remain of the City of Shadows under the hooves of 30,000 elite soldiers. After passing through Spirit Peak Valley, the 30,000 soldiers rushed to the City of Shadows under the cover of dusk. In fact, this battle with the City of Shadows could be said to be an overwhelming battle where the strong bullied the weak. How many people did the City of Shadows have? Could it use 3,000 disciples? Or 5,000? If everything went smoothly, it wouldn't take more than half a day to conquer the City of Shadows. However, when the soldiers arrived at the city gates, 8th young Master Chi and company couldn't help but be startled. The city gates were wide open, and there was no one at the entrance. It was a desolate sight. Duan Yu blinked. They ran away. Where could they have run in such a short time? Rongqing frowned and leaped off her spirit horse. The drawbridge at the city gates had already been lowered. Looking from here, the opposite side of the drawbridge was silent and empty. It looks like a trap, 8th young Master Chi muttered softly. Duan Yu nodded in agreement. It was indeed a trap, and it wasn't an ordinary trap. This empty city stratagem was to lure them inside. 8th young Master Chi turned to ask, Your Majesty, how about we summon our flying beasts and fly over? In terms of conspiracy theories, the suspension bridge in front of them must have been destroyed by someone. Even though it appeared to be in perfect condition, it was only the enemy's camouflage. The corners of Crown Prince Rong's mouth twitched. His Majesty has many teleportation talisman arrays. It would be a waste not to use them. Let's use them. Duan Yu expressionlessly glanced at him before suddenly pulling out a storage talisman. Come in. 8th young Master Chi's jaw almost dropped to the ground. Ing, stay behind. You and Chi Ba stay behind. The rest of you go in first. Since the other party had come up with a strange empty fort strategy and didn't seem to want to fight them head-on, then they shouldn't blame him for making a fool of himself. Rongqing silently took the storage talismans and put them into the storage talismans in groups of 1,000. Fuck, just how many storage talismans did the little Stoic Crown Princess give His Majesty? Why do I feel that Her Majesty will make me bleed? Crown Prince Rong silently stuffed a blank jade talisman into his waist and threw the rest back to His Majesty. He really couldn't converse with a nouveau riche. He felt a bit of a headache whenever he saw those talismans. In the blink of an eye, only 4 people remained out of the 30,000 elites. Chapter 5294. The corners of 8th young Master Chi's eyes twitched as he weakly turned to look at the expressionless Shadow Guard. This Shadow Guard seemed to be called Ing. He was often seen accompanying His Majesty. He was expressionless and icy, so it was obvious that he was groomed by the deceptive His Majesty. His Majesty is truly extravagant. 8th young Master Chi was truly at a loss for words. As the number 1 talisman patrician family in Tsang Province, their Chi clan had never seen anyone take out so many storage jade talismans. It's all right. Duan Yu put away the jade talismans and stored the storage talismans containing 30,000 elite soldiers into the space ring on his finger. He then said, "Let's go." At his command, the other three leaped at the same time and followed him across the suspension bridge. Eighth young Master Chi even tossed a flying dagger onto the bridge, waiting to watch a good show. To everyone's surprise, with a thump, the dagger stabbed into the center of the suspension bridge. The entire bridge only trembled slightly for a moment before it stopped shaking. Shadow Guarding lowered his eyes and secretly twitched the corner of his mouth. His Majesty, Eighth Young Master Chi, and Heir Apparent Rong Qing. These three people with super high IQ combined were analyzing the possibility of someone setting a trap on the suspension bridge. They definitely couldn't step on it, or they would fall into a trap. In the end, the other party didn't set any traps at all, and they were the only ones who were nervous for nothing. Eighth Young Master Chi pointed at the suspension bridge and said, "Do the opposite and treat it with caution." Heir Apparent Rong nodded in agreement. "That's probably the case. Ing, can you two stop praising each other's IQ? His Majesty has already flown far away." Seeing that Duan Yu's figure was as fast as lightning and left them far behind, the three hastily chased after him with all their might. However, as they chased, their expressions slowly froze. Something wasn't right. Why was the distance between them not too far and not too close? It was as if His Majesty was always in front, but they couldn't catch up no matter how hard they chased. Eighth Young Master Chi was the first to react. "It's a talisman array. Good Lord, there was no trap on the suspension bridge, but a trap was set up after crossing it. It was even a trap array for Tao obstruction. Come with me." At that moment, His Majesty's voice rang in their ears. The Eighth Young Master Chi turned around and almost broke out in a cold sweat. He saw that His Majesty was following closely behind the three of them like a ghost, only a few feet away. However, the three of them did not notice that he had appeared behind them. "Oh my God, can you not scare me? That's not right. I clearly saw you running ahead of us just now." Duan Yu waved his hand, and a guide talisman floated up and down in front of him. "I ran for a while and realized that something was wrong, so I turned back to look for you." He took out a thunder fireball from his pocket. "Your Majesty, what are you doing?" Duan Yu remained silent. With another wave of his hand, he released Yi and the others. "Lead the way to Mu Jinghong's residence." After saying that, he casually threw out a thunder fireball. With a loud rumble, the brick wall behind them suddenly collapsed, giving Yi and the others a fright. "Please follow me, Your Majesty." He didn't dare to say anything else, and quickly led Duan Yu's group of four to Mu Jinghong's dormitory. Loud rumbles could be heard along the way. Duan Yu threw out firearms along the way. When he saw everyone looking over, he kindly asked, "Want one to play with?" Chapter 5295. Rong Qing and the others glanced at him exasperatedly. "Thank you, Your Majesty. You can play by yourself." His Majesty seemed to be having a lot of fun as he forcefully demolished the nearby buildings and bombed them into a mess. As his subordinates, the most important thing for them was as long as His Majesty was happy. "I'll blast a path out here so we can walk more safely." Duan Yu turned around and explained to them, "There are trapping arrays nearby, so we might get trapped inside if we're not careful. Don't worry, I'll just blow it up. And look, there seems to be no path ahead, but a path will appear after I blow it up, right?" Yi and the others looked at each other in bewilderment. They felt that this Sangzhou emperor behind them was a bit similar to their little master. Similarly deceptive? The same thought flashed through their minds at the same time. The entire city of shadows seemed to have sunk into a dense fog. With their cultivation, they couldn't see more than 20 meters ahead. They heard His Majesty urging them from behind. "Hurry, don't worry. I'll clear a path for you from behind. You just need to run in the direction you know. Don't worry about anything ahead. I'll clear all obstacles for you." "As you command." Yi and the others nodded respectfully and started sprinting forward. The five of them had a good sense of direction, so they only needed to look around for a bit before deciding on a direction. After the five of them sprinted forward, Duan Yu, Rong Qing, Ing, and Qi Ba also followed. "Your Majesty, it's easy to set up a trap ahead." Boom! The sound of a thunderfire bullet's explosion shook the sky. And the others silently shut their mouths as they watched His Majesty continuously take out all kinds of firearms of various sizes from his inner world. "Your Majesty, there's a silver hook bridge ahead that connects the two inner cities on the left and right. The city lord lives in the Eagle City on the left. It's very likely that there's an ambush up there." Boom! Boom, boom, boom. Just as he finished speaking, he saw His Majesty untie a small green bamboo tube from his waist and shoot a string of concealed weapons at the nearby silver hook bridge that was buried in the fog. The power of the 9 thunder jade heavens was naturally incomparable to the thunder fireball from before. This series of crazy explosions caused E1 and the others to be dumbfounded. His Majesty was definitely a tycoon, a peerless tycoon. Where did all these hidden weapons come from? There were all kinds of hidden weapons, each with their own power. Along the way, they watched as he changed his tactics and blasted them all the way. Dozens of rapid breathing sounds could be faintly heard from the fog, and then it became silent. Rongqing and Chiba looked at each other. These people were really unlucky. They were hiding in some dark corner and waiting to ambush them. In the end, they met His Majesty, who did not play by the rules. A round of random gunfire didn't give them any advantage at all. Instead, many people lost their lives. City Lord Mu Jinghong, who was standing in front of the main hall of Eagle City, was jumping up and down in anger as he cursed. Mu Xiaoxue, who was hiding behind him, was already trembling in fear. "Father? Now what should we do? Today, I worked overtime and came back late. I didn't have time to write. I'm going to sleep. Let me inform you. Make up for it tomorrow. I probably have to visit Grandma in the hospital during the day. Judging from the situation, if I don't make up for it during the day, I'll make up for it at night. I'll finish it." Chapter 5296. Mu Jinghong was annoyed. At this moment, how could she be in the mood to comfort her frightened little daughter? Beside Mu Xiaoxue stood a slightly plump young man with a smile on his round face. Seeing Mu Xiaoxue frightened, he hurriedly stepped forward and took the initiative to put his arm around her shoulders. He comforted her in a low voice. "Sister Xiaoxue, don't be afraid. Nothing will happen." "Brother Kong." Mu Xiaoxue wiped her tears with a handkerchief and quietly glanced at her father's back. She said softly, "I'm worried about Father." Kong Yaofa hugged Mu Xiaoxue and comforted her again. "Don't worry. Uncle Mu has a way to deal with it." "Is that so?" Mu Xiaoxue's gaze swept across the screen wall in front of her. She saw flames soaring into the sky. Countless buildings in the city had been razed to the ground by firearms. Judging from the situation, could the City of Shadows really survive the night? "Not good. City Lord, City Lord." A cry of alarm came from behind everyone. Mu Jinghong's eyelids twitched fiercely, and he fell into a deep rage. Since 2 hours ago, he had been receiving all kinds of not good reports. The news came one after another, and there was no good news at all. When was there a time when it wasn't bad? There was no better news, only worse. So when he heard the words, "not good now," he was furious and wanted to kill the guard in front of him. When the guard who came to report the situation saw the city lord's murderous expression, he immediately took a step back in panic. He knelt on the ground with a plop and kowtowed repeatedly. City Lord, Madam Shi." Mu Jinghong roared. "If you have something to say it quickly. Why are you stuttering?" It was tiring to listen. How could he raise such a group of useless subordinates? "What happened to Zhuoyan? Say it." Madam packed up a lot of valuables and left from the back slope with eldest miss and eldest young master. "What?" Mu Jinghong almost spat out a mouthful of blood. Zhuoyan actually left with her children? Was there anything more despairing and infuriating than this? When the city was destroyed, his wife and children abandoned him first. This was his, Mu Jinghong's, good wife and good children. In the face of a great disaster, each of them flew off separately. This was really good, really good. Mu Jinghong was so angry that she almost broke her teeth from clenching them. She looked up to the sky and let out an angry roar. as if she had gone mad. Mu Xiaoxua hid beside Kong Yaofa and was so scared that she did not even dare to breathe. Gu Yixuan, who was standing behind the two, clenched her fists tightly as she looked at the chubby young man with uncertain eyes. This fatty was the young master of the Kong family and was originally the fiancé of the eldest miss, Mu Feixia. Later on, for some unknown reason, he got together with little junior sister. Now that he had broken off the engagement with eldest miss, he claimed to be little junior sister's fiancé, which made Gu Yixuan gnash her teeth in hatred. He never thought that after killing Zhao Yi, another Kong Yaofa would jump out. How could he not be enraged? Gu Yixuan's face was gloomy as he looked at the two people standing in front of him. He thought to himself, one day, I'll kill this Kong Yaofa as well. Big brother, big brother. Wearing two thick fur cloaks, the third city lord ran over with a sullen face. He could not help but ask, Big brother, do you really want to join Tianyan? Just now, his second brother sent someone to inform him to prepare for war. Only then did he wake up from his dream and suddenly realize. Chapter 5297. Previously, he stood up for his disciple, Shan Yisu, and went to the banquet in the Palace of Divine Prefecture. The little crown princess pointed out that Shan Yisu was the disciple of Tian Yun, but he did not believe it. Could it be that the arrogant and despotic crown princess really did not wrongly accuse his disciple? Looking at his eldest brother's situation, it seemed that he was very familiar with the people of Tian Yun. The second city lord slowly followed behind the reckless third brother. Along the way, he sighed and said, Third brother, what else is there to ask? Second brother, you already knew? The third city lord stared at the second city lord with an incredulous expression. So my disciple, Shan Yisu, is really an alchemist cultivated by you? Why? Why did she join Tian Yun? Isn't she courting death? Now the City of Shadows has become the target of the three provinces. Mu Jinghong's face was very ugly, and he interrupted his words angrily. I haven't questioned you about Shan Yisu acting on her own, and now you're questioning your eldest brother? Eldest brother. Second brother told me that Tian Yun came up with a plan for us to play such an empty fort strategy. Is it true? What do you mean by leading the Zhangzhou Emperor to our door and then fighting behind closed doors? The third city lord roared with a face full of shock and anger. What about now? Who's fighting who now? Eldest brother, you're muddle-headed. Aren't you asking for trouble? Shut up. Mu Jinghong's face turned red after being yelled at by his third brother. He looked completely embarrassed. He really did not expect that he, Mu Jinghong, would be so miserable one day. Not to mention that his wife and children ran away with the money. Now even his third brother, who had always been simple and honest, came to question him loudly. It made him feel like he was in an awkward situation. A fire was reflected on the screen wall. Now it seemed that the entire City of Shadows had fallen into a sea of red fire. Mu Xiaoxiu nervously held the handkerchief in her hand, lowered her head, and sobbed. She was too scared. She did not expect that someone would bring thousands of troops to the City of Shadows. If she had known this, she would not have fled back to the City of Shadows with her father in a panic. She should have hidden in Longyin and Changle Villa in the capital. Maybe there would have been a glimmer of hope. She was still young and had a good time ahead of her. She didn't want to waste it here. Kong Yaofa acted like a flower protector as he hugged Mu Xiaoxua's shoulder and comforted her. Don't worry, little sister Xiaoxua. It's not the end yet. If worse comes to worst, we can use the teleportation glyph array to escape from this place. Gu Yixuan couldn't help but sneer behind his back. Young Master Kong is really promising. The battle hasn't even started, and you're already thinking of running away. Kong Yaofa cast a sidelong glance behind him. What do you think, young Master Gu? Gu Yixuan naturally couldn't have any wise ideas. Now that the City of Shadows was on fire and the city was under siege, the situation couldn't get any worse. However, when he saw Kong Yaofa's pretentious look, he couldn't help but get angry. Second brother, follow the original plan and bring people to the Eagle City's entrance to ambush them. The entrance of Eagle City was a natural opening, As long as the right amount of manpower was deployed, they would definitely be able to catch the enemy off guard. The third city lord could not help but stomp his feet again. Big brother, what are you thinking? Aren't you sending second brother to his death? How many firearms have the enemy thrown out so far? Do you know how many firearms he still has on him? Although many people can hide at the Eagle City's entrance, we can't guarantee that the enemy is already prepared. Shut up. Chapter 5298. Mu Jinghong roared at the third city lord. You're still in the mood to make more trouble at this time. If you don't want to work together to resist the enemy, then get out of here. The third city lord was enraged by Mu Jinghong's roar. His eyes were wide open and his heart was burning with anger. But now everything was still under Mu Jinghong's control, so he could only watch as his second brother picked 20 disciples and walked quickly towards the entrance of Eagle City. The third city lord stomped his feet anxiously and angrily. He turned back and called his dozens of disciples to follow the second city lord in a hurry. Second brother, how many people did they send? The third city lord asked anxiously as he followed his second brother all the way. The second city lord was silent for a while, but he still told the truth. It's not clear at the moment. I saw a mass of people outside the city. Then it disappeared. It should have been put away by something. The third city lord clenched his fists. Second brother, do you think there's still room for negotiation? The second city lord sighed deeply. I don't think so. Third brother, you have to be mentally prepared for the worst. The third city lord was stunned when he heard this. It was self-evident what the worst psychological preparation was, that was to die on the spot. Was the situation really so serious? Hurry up and keep up. The third city lord waved his hand and led a group of disciples to the entrance of Eagle City. With a look, the crowd immediately scattered and found a hiding place to squat. They were waiting for the prey to come to them and immediately rushed forward to kill. At this time, it was almost the end of the year. The cold wind was blowing and it was very cold. The crowd squatted in the hiding place in fear, as if waiting for the fierce beasts to come to them, their hands tightly clenched in cold sweat. The third city lord hid in the dark and gestured to several disciples, reminding them that when the people came in a while, they should immediately release the spirit beasts first. The crowd nodded secretly, and the bad premonition in their hearts became stronger. For some reason, they felt that tonight's battle, the chances of the City of Shadows winning were close to zero. The rumbling of firearms came from the distance, and the second city lord and the third city lord's mood tightened again. Your Majesty, the entrance to the City of Eagle is right in front of us, E1 explained concisely. It's easy to be ambushed at the entrance. E-Air nodded. The entrance seems to be a bottleneck. It's rather narrow, so it's not suitable to release a large number of troops here. It won't be too late to let him out after we go in. Duanyu nodded and casually took out a handful of penetrating bone nails from his pocket and scattered them. A few intermittent screams came from the dark night. Duanyu quickly pointed ahead. Oh no, there really is an ambush. Everyone couldn't help but twitch their mouths. Why do I feel that His Majesty is a drama queen? It's a little funny. Before they had time to speak, they saw their Majesty valiantly take the lead and fly out. Before they could catch him, he had already flown into the City of Eagle's entrance. Rongqing and Chiba looked at each other and felt like crying. With such an unreliable emperor, who could they find to reason with? They had all said that there might be an ambush at the entrance, but His Majesty had rushed over first regardless of his own life. If he was so valiant, what did he need his subordinates for? E-Air and the others were taken aback, but they quickly followed after him. As they ran, they summoned their accompanying spirit beasts from the spirit beast space. At the same time, the second city lord and the third city lord had already clearly seen the newcomer. Chapter 5299. There were only a few people. When they saw the two of them, they heaved a sigh of relief and hurriedly called for their subordinates to charge forward. Those disciples of the City of Shadows originally harbored the thought of fighting to the death. Now that they suddenly saw that there were only a few enemies, they were immediately overjoyed. They summoned their spirit beasts and charged forward with a roar. In the blink of an eye, Duan Yu abruptly took out a pile of glistening weapons from his inner world. Everyone was baffled for a moment. There were dozens of these weapons, including hammers, scissors, and all kinds of strange shapes. Duan Yu snapped his fingers and shouted, "Explode!" Under everyone's watchful eyes, he abruptly exploded this batch of abandoned spirit weapons. The spirit weapon's violent explosion directly sent the dozen or so disciples of the City of Shadows, who had rushed forward, flying into the sky. The light from the fire illuminated the faces of the people who were in disbelief. Duan Yu decisively released Chestnut and pointed forward. Chestnut, 8 furry tails brushed through the air, and a snow-white little fox followed his finger with a whoosh and pounced forward. It turned into the size of a small hill in a matter of minutes, and its 8 enormous tails smashed into several spirit beasts that couldn't escape in time with a rumble. In a flash, the spirit beasts were smashed into minced meat. The pitiful owners of those spirit beasts didn't even have time to move before they violently vomited a mouthful of blood, and they subsequently collapsed to the ground. Chestnut nimbly moved its limbs and dashed toward the third city lord as fast as lightning. Shocked, the third city lord barely had time to draw a defensive wall when that 8-tailed celestial fox's sharp claws abruptly tore 3 deep marks on the defensive wall. Old Third, the second city lord shouted and hastily recalled his spirit beast into the space. In front of a terrifying sacred beast, his spirit beast simply wasn't enough to fill the gaps between the 8-tailed celestial fox's teeth. Why bother summoning it and asking for trouble? Second brother, be careful. The third city lord took a deep breath and abruptly drew a long spear out of thin air. He activated his defensive spirit weapon and charged at Duan Yu. Now, there seemed to be no other choice but to fight to the death. You're courting death. The 8th young master, Qi, waved his hand, and a dozen attack talismans flew out and collided with the defensive walls around the 3 city lords. Third city lord gritted his teeth and flew to Duan Yu, pointing a spear at Duan Yu's chest. Only by capturing this person would he have a chance at survival. The plan of the 3 city lords was indeed good, but unfortunately, they had underestimated the strength of the Emperor of Tsangzhou. In a flash, Duan Yu's hand had already flicked away his pike, and it heavily deviated to the side. The third city lord was shocked. After all, the one in front of him was a young man in his early 20s. He didn't expect him to be so powerful. With just a flick of his finger, he was able to deflect all the energy he had accumulated all over his body. Alarm bells rang in his heart, and he was about to turn around and flee to a safe place. Suddenly, the young man in front of him moved his finger and drew out a long, curved shadow. A silver flame that seemed to have no temperature was bent into the shape of a bow in his hand. The arrow on the bowstring took shape in a matter of seconds. This kind of mastery of the fire spirit made the third city lord stunned. This was impossible. No one in the world could control the fire spirit so skillfully. And what was this pure white flame that didn't seem to have any temperature at all? Chapter 5300. The third city lord's heart trembled slightly, and he subconsciously wanted to dodge backward. Hearing the second city lord's anxious roar, the third city lord took heavy steps. Only then did he clearly feel that his entire body seemed to have been frozen in midair. He only managed to take one step before his entire body was completely frozen. 5 to 6 immobilization talismans faintly floated in midair around him. That youth had already sealed off his escape route when he made his move. The third city lord glared at that youth in astonishment. In the cold wind, under the night sky, this young monarch's expression was almost frighteningly calm. His long hair swayed slightly against the wind. His pair of resplendent and bright eyes stared fixedly at him, and his entire body was filled with a frightening aura of death. Whoosh! The demon emperor's fire transformed into a fire spirit arrow. With lightning speed, it almost arrived in front of the third city lord in a breath's time. It directly pierced through the heart of the third city lord, who was unable to move. Third brother. The second city lord's mournful scream came from behind. He staggered a step forward, barely managing to block the fierce attacks from both Crown Prince Rome and 8th Young Master Qi. In the end, the second city lord couldn't withstand it, and his body abruptly fell to the ground. When he looked up, a bloody flower exploded on the third city lord's chest, and his entire body emitted bright and beautiful flames as if he was ignited by fireworks. The third city lord was ignited from head to toe like a large, human-shaped mushroom, and a mushroom cloud sprayed out of his head, and then there was no end. His body was burned to charcoal by the silver-white flames. However, in the blink of an eye, he turned into a handful of ashes in that low-key flame that did not ignite and scattered in all directions. Third brother. The second city lord cried as he sprawled on the ground with tears streaming down his face. His hateful gaze landed on Duan Yu, and he looked like he couldn't wait to devour Duan Yu's flesh and bones. This lofty monarch merely glanced indifferently at his third brother, who had turned into flying ashes. That glance was like looking at a small ant crawling on the ground. It was incomparably arrogant, containing supreme contempt and endless ruthlessness. The second city lord forcefully pounded the ground and staggered up from the ground. He used a black spear to support himself on the ground to prevent himself from falling. The remaining dozen or so disciples of the City of Shadows either looked pale or had fear in their eyes. They huddled around the second city lord, trembling in panic. In their eyes, the plain-clothed emperor of Zhangzhou was so handsome, but he was as dark and frightening as a ghost. Their third city lord was taken care of in one blow. With so many people present, who could be his match? No one had the strength to fight against him. They were all very clear about the strength of the third city lord. To be able to crush the third city lord like crushing an ant with just one blow, this person's strength must be above mystique venerable rank, right? Let them, a group of deity realm minions, deal with a transcendent realm mighty figure. All the disciples of the City of Shadows felt a sense of sadness in their hearts. Facing a transcendent realm expert, no matter how they struggled, they could not escape death. Everyone in the City of Shadows colluded with the Heavenly Fate dynasty to harm the compatriots of the three provinces. This crime is unforgivable and deserves 10,000 deaths. Duan Yu's cold voice drifted in the dark night. He waved his hand, and a faint sneer slid across his lips. Chapter 5301. The disciples of the City of Shadows, who were originally looking at each other in a trance, involuntarily widened their eyes. Hundreds of black figures suddenly appeared behind this Zhangzhou emperor. Every second, hundreds of figures would appear from behind him. Hundreds of figures would appear one after another. They lined up in 4 rows, standing neatly behind this expressionless Zhangzhou emperor. Cold sweat dripped down from the second city lord's head. Look at this lineup. His Majesty had indeed brought thousands of people with him. Unless they had someone to help them, otherwise the foundation that the City of Shadows had built over so many years would be destroyed today. Duan Yu lightly waved his hand and said indifferently, "Kill them all on the spot. Kill." Impassioned roars erupted from all around. The elites of the 3 provinces had been cooped up in the storage talisman for a long time. Now that they were released, their momentum was greatly boosted. The second city lord tightly gripped the black spear in his hand, and his eyes widened in shock and fury, revealing a helpless expression. "My life is over today." The second city lord closed his eyes and shouted angrily, "Go!" However, the numerous disciples of the City of Shadows simultaneously retreated more than a dozen steps at his command and turned to flee for their lives. The second city lord stared dumbfoundedly at this scene before him. In the blink of an eye, the elites of the 3 provinces had already rushed to his side. Dozens of long swords stabbed at his body. The second city lord didn't want to sit and wait for death, so he could only flee in panic. He was in dire straits as he resisted everyone's pursuit. Those dozen or so disciples of the City of Shadows didn't manage to escape far before they were all slaughtered by the elites of the 3 provinces who surged forward like a tidal wave. Their speed was so fast that it left people speechless. Everyone was clearly a God Realm expert, but under the siege of the elites of the three provinces, the dozen or so disciples of the City of Shadows had no power to resist. Waves of bird cries came from the sky. Duan Yu expressionlessly looked up. He saw a dense mass of fine-necked, eagle-bodied beasts rapidly moving over along the dark horizon. Duan Yu was already prepared and raised his hand slightly. Dozens of spirit stone cannons were pushed out. The muzzles of the cannons were aimed at the sky in an orderly manner. Then, a series of loud rumbling sounds rang out. The spirit stones were thrown in handfuls after handfuls, and the sound of the cannon rumbled. A certain emperor did not care about the consumption at all, and kept waving his hand to let the people behind push the spirit stone cannon forward to fill the position. After the first round of bombardment was over, when the spirit stones were loaded, he had the people behind him take over and continue bombarding. The unlucky eagle beasts were still struggling in the air when they were bombarded by the cannons, unable to descend, unable to go up or down. It was as if they had deliberately flown here to seek death. They were bombarded by more than 20 spirit stone cannons from the front and back, causing them to fall from the sky one after another. The elites of the three prefectures had originally been divided into 300 small teams. Each team consisted of 100 people, and each team took turns to defend a direction. Seeing that something was about to fall, he disregarded everything and hacked the old master to death with a flurry of blades. That pitiful harpy was directly chopped into pieces in a matter of minutes. Unable to be pieced back together, TSK. Your Majesty of Tsangzhou, you are truly ruthless. A faint teasing voice was heard. Everyone looked over with vigilant gazes. They saw several figures floating down from the sky above where the eagle beasts were gathered. Dougal Ling, who was dressed in a red robe with a girdle, chuckled softly as he opened the ink-colored folding fan in his hand with a whoosh. Chapter 5302. Sir Dougal looked at the crowd below with a grin. What should we do? So many elites from the three provinces have gathered. It's clear that they want to uproot the City of Shadows. Although the City of Shadows transcends the three provinces, it has always lived in seclusion. I truly didn't expect that it would usher in such a bloody calamity today. If word gets out that the three provinces have gathered so many people to oppress and threaten a reclusive clan like the City of Shadows, their reputation won't be good. Duan Yu expressionlessly said, "Tell them who you are. Kill the heavenly fate. Kill the heavenly fate. Kill the heavenly fate." 30,000 voices rang out in unison under the starry sky. Their voices traveled far and wide, causing Mu Xiaoxue, who was already mentally weak from fright, to shrink into a ball in a panic. Kong Yaofa's expression shifted. How many people have come? Judging from this momentum, there were probably more than 10,000 people. The fan in Dougal Ling's hand nearly dropped. He speechlessly smacked his lips and pitifully glanced at Duan Yu. Your Majesty probably didn't come up with this name, right? Kill the heavenly fate. Kill the heavenly fate. What a melodramatic and stupid name. Rongqing stepped forward and very politely nodded. May I know who this is? Dougal Ling also very politely replied. This one is the Hall Master of the Star Picking Hall. Dougal Ling, Hall Master Dougal. The name Kill the Heavenly Fate was given by our Crown Princess of the Divine Province. Vassal Prince Rong pointed at the horizon and cupped his hands in apology. Please forgive me for my rudeness, Hall Master. Duan Yu speechlessly twitched his mouth. Why did it feel like this brother of his was a bit retarded? Sometimes Dougal Ling was also speechless. As expected, only the little crown princess could come up with such a simple, straightforward, and murderous name. Sigh, what a cold-blooded, heartless, and vexing little thing. Dougal Ling pitifully blinked. Can I see her? Rongqing shook her head. You can't see her, and she also won't see you. We are people from two different worlds. Our organizations are different, our goals are different, and our missions are also different. I hope you won't have any more improper thoughts. Duan Yu, eighth young Master Qi held back his laughter and coughed lightly to interrupt Rong. Rong, Now is not the time to reason with them. Then he cupped his hands at Dugu Ling and felt that his actions were a little foolish. Both sides were enemies. What was the point of arching? She had been with second young Master K for so long that her behavior was starting to resemble him. Home Master Dugu, you've brought so many eagle beasts here today. It's obvious that you're here to support the City of Shadows. Dugu Ling said innocently, "What if I insist that I'm just passing by?" A soldier suddenly jumped out, raised his saber, and shouted angrily, "Kill, kill, kill. Even if they're just passing by, we'll kill them." Duan Yu was taken aback. He didn't expect a soldier to suddenly jump out from behind him. Several voices were heard in unison. "That's right. The Crown Princess has given the order to kill members of the Tian Yun group. He would definitely slaughter everyone in the Heavenly Fate realm. It didn't matter if it was just a passerby, even if it was just a chicken raised by All Seer's family. We can't let him go either. Kill, kill, kill. Slaughter all the animals of the Tian Yun group. Kill all the dog heads of the Tian Yun group. Long live the Crown Princess. Eternally immortal, Duan Yu." Dugu Ling's mouth twitched. Just how much did the little Crown Princess have against them? Look at how she had educated a bunch of hot-headed subordinates. Done. Chapter 5303. The young Crown Prince Consort would live on for all eternity. Dugu Ling's face darkened amidst the drum-like chants. This blind worship was simply comical. It was clearly an extremely infuriating matter, but why did it seem a bit funny now? You have to maintain your rationality. Hall Master Dugu cried out pitifully. He blinked his eyes and looked at the group of soldiers on the left and the group of soldiers on the right. You can't overly blindly worship little Crown Princess. Dugu Ling mused what kind of bewitching potion this imp fed the soldiers to make them worship her like this. He reckoned that it really was little Crown Princess who used her identity as a pill alchemist to obtain many pills that could allow people to advance quickly and safely. So these soldiers from the 3 provinces had all become the little Stoics' die-hard fans without any surprise. It had to be said that Sir Dugu's brain turned rather quickly and guessed the crux of the matter. The Jewel Sky's J-Dragon pills that little Crown Princess distributed had indeed won her a group of loyal die-hard fans. Regardless of whether they were from the Divine Province or not, they were extremely jubilant when they called her Crown Princess. "Everyone, don't listen to this guy's nonsense. Kill him." A soldier yelled furiously, and everyone shouted in unison. The crowd's fervent enthusiasm scared Hall Master Dugu into repeatedly retreating, aggrieved and pitiful. You guys, don't be so agitated." Hall Master Dugu stretched out his hands and pressed them down, making a "please be quiet" gesture. Duan Yu glanced at him and suddenly chuckled. There's no use stalling for time. Dugu Ling's expression flickered, and he couldn't help but inwardly praise. Sigh. Any little tricks were truly useless in front of smart people. I heard that the City of Shadows has an incredible city-guarding treasure. It's called Fire Glazed Glass. It's divided into levels 1 to 9. Duan Yu curled his lips and looked meaningfully at Dugu Ling. Mu Jinghong is plotting something? Dugu Ling couldn't help but inwardly admire him. It was said that the rulers of the 3 provinces weren't easy to deal with. This Cangzhou emperor thought for a moment and connected the dots to the fire glazed glass. He didn't need anyone to point it out. Dugu Ling couldn't help but admire his brain. Take a guess. Dugu Ling had no choice but to continue delaying. Mu Jinghong said that he would need about an hour to set it up. As for how to set it up, he had no idea. In the end, he was not familiar with the terrain here. Everything depended on what City Lord Mu did. I'm guessing that old geezer Mu Jinghong will risk his life and abandon this city in a futile attempt to bury us here. Duan Yu couldn't help but snicker. Will that work? I don't know. Dugu Ling exchanged glances with him, then suddenly took a step back. A silver flame streaked across the sky and landed on Dugu Ling's back with a swoosh. The burning flame soared into the sky. The 2 disciples behind Dugu Ling couldn't dodge in time and were set on fire. They screamed and fell from the sky. She threw herself onto the ground and rolled several times before hastily reaching Duan Yu. Crown Prince Rong pursed his lips tightly, as if he was facing a great enemy. He raised his hand, and hundreds of soldiers rushed forward. They drew their swords and slashed down in a flurry, killing the two unlucky fellows on the spot. Blood splattered everywhere, and the second city lord's heart was filled with iciness. Dugu Ling dodged very quickly and disappeared into the pack of harpies in the blink of an eye. He quickly shifted to the back. Hall Master Dugu. Chapter 5304. The second city lord couldn't help but panic and hurriedly shouted. He was currently surrounded by the soldiers of the three provinces, so he had basically fallen into the enemy's hands. If it weren't for Hall Master Dugu's help, he definitely wouldn't have ended well today. Therefore, when he saw Dugu Ling planning to slip away, he was very anxious and couldn't help shouting. In fact, Dugu Ling had already seen the second city lord being besieged. Given the current situation, it was absolutely impossible to rescue the second city lord. Moreover, Mu Jinghong just called him over to buy some time and didn't ask him to help the second city lord escape. Since that was the case, he didn't need to meddle in other people's business. The second city lord watched Dugu Ling swagger away, and he was both anxious and angry. He quickly turned to look, only to see the flood-like iron guards of the three states surrounding him. There was nothing he could do. The second city lord was instantly disheartened. He threw away the black spear in his hand and simply allowed himself to be captured. Everyone tied him up and brought him to Duanyu. Ing kicked the second city lord's leg, causing him to kneel on the ground with a plop. Although the second city lord was resentful, he was naturally very helpless when his life fell into someone else's hands. Did you see that? Duanyu curled his lips at him and said with a spurious smile, "The city of shadows you believe in will only consign you to eternal damnation in the end. You think the first city lord will send people to save you? They didn't come to save you. They're just stalling for time." The second city lord straightened his neck and said coldly, "Kill me or torture me as you wish. Since I've already fallen into your hands, I'll be at your disposal. Of course I will punish you." Duanyu nodded. "Do you think you're a good person? You helped Mu Jinghong cooperate with the Heavenly Fate dynasty and secretly harmed countless innocent people. We're only enforcing justice on behalf of the heavens by executing you." The second city lord's eyes revealed substantial murderous intent and anger. He raised his head to glare at Duanyu and roared, "The winner takes all. I have nothing to say. Zhui Yin of the City of Shadows requests an audience with His Majesty of Sangzhou." As he spoke, a clear voice attracted everyone's attention. He saw a few soldiers pushing a tied-up middle-aged woman forward, along with two young men and a young woman. It was none other than Zhui Yin and her two children who had packed up some valuables and fled in the middle of the night. Unfortunately, although they moved quickly, they didn't know that all the entrances and exits outside the City of Shadows had already been blocked by Duanyu's people. Long Yun's prediction was not wrong. Duanyu had indeed brought more than 30,000 troops. This guy still had a trick up his sleeve. He placed them in the periphery of the city to capture those fish that escaped the net. In the middle of the night, he had caught 3 big fish. It could be said that he had a bountiful harvest. "Your Majesty, I, Zhui Yin, can swear to the heavens that my son and I will never participate in the heavenly fate. I know nothing about what my husband has done," Zhui Yin said in a deep voice. "If I'm lying, I'm willing to be killed by the heavenly Tao." Duanyu raised a brow as he indifferently swept a glance at the 3 people before him. Mu Feixia anxiously called out, "Mother." Zhui Yin turned to look at her daughter, indicating for her to shut up. She raised her head to swear to the heavens and straightforwardly bit out a mouthful of blood to swear a heavenly Tao blood oath. A streak of blood flashed across the horizon, indicating that the oath had been completed. Zhui Yin looked at Duanyu with a face full of rage. "I already knew that Mu Jinghong would be killed by that mistress outside." Chapter 5305. That Mu Qingya really had some tricks up her sleeve. She was just a housewife, yet she was able to bewitch her husband with her tricks. Of course, Mu Jinghong also wanted to take revenge on the Mu family, so he got involved with that woman. But they had been together for so long. But Juyin never expected that Mu Jinghong, a harsh and ungrateful man, would actually have feelings for Mu Qingya. Mu Jinghong had fallen in love with that mistress. That was why she was fooled by the soaring Heaven's Hall's Hallmaster. She was completely used. Not only did he bring disaster to the entire City of Shadows, but he also brought disaster to the three of them. When Juyin thought of this, she gnashed her teeth in hatred. If Mu Qingya was in front of her at this time, she would have rushed forward and torn this vicious woman apart without saying a word. I was right. I found out before that he had a close relationship with that mistress, as if he was planning something. Juyin gritted her teeth. I didn't expect that Mu Jinghong would be so brainless. He actually believed the words of that mistress and really led so many people in the City of Shadows to join Tianyin. When Mu Jinghong joined, he didn't ask for my opinion at all, nor did he ask for the opinion of his children. He didn't care about anything and sold all of our lives. Juyin was so sad that she wanted to cry out loud. The three of us added together can't even compare to that bitch Mu in his heart. Juyin suddenly laughed wildly. In that case, when disaster strikes, everyone flies away. I naturally won't care about his life or death. I didn't expect that your majesty would catch me red-handed when I escaped from the City of Shadows with my 2 children. Your majesty, I can tell you everything about Mu Jinghong. Ian took a deep breath and pleaded, I can also tell you the approximate location of all the assets he buried underground. I just want you to promise me one thing, your majesty. Let my children go. Even if you want my life, it doesn't matter. Mother, Mu Feixia and Mu Yuanying hurriedly called out. Mother, if you don't leave, we won't leave either. Mother, we'll leave together. Mu Yuanying and Mu Feixia were tied together. They were so anxious that they were sweating profusely. Juyin glanced at her children. Don't worry about Mother. Mother has lived for so long, I can see through everything. Mother only wants the 2 of you to be well. Duanyu looked at the 3 of them before his gaze landed on Juyian's pale face. For a moment, his gaze was a bit absent-minded. Son, I don't have any other requests. Mother only wants you to be happy. It would be even better if you could bring a daughter-in-law back to Mother. Your Majesty. Crown Prince Rong immediately noticed that his Majesty was in a daze. He quickly reached out and tugged at his sleeves. Duanyu returned to his senses in a daze and said with a slight nod. In that case, before he could finish his sentence, he suddenly heard a soldier in front of him shouting, Who's there? More than a dozen people with sluggish footsteps and tilted heads walked out of the City of Eagles and approached the entrance step by step. Their movements were very sluggish, and they seemed to be walking with great difficulty. Juyian's expression abruptly changed when she saw these sluggish zombies. She hastily said, Your Majesty must be careful. Chapter 5306. These zombies might have fire glass buried in their bodies. Mu Jinghong probably wants to make these zombies detonate the fire glass effortlessly and perish together with us. The surrounding soldiers' expressions changed when they heard this, and they surged to Duan Yu's side like a tide. They were fearless and had to block the fire glass, even if they had to act as human flesh walls. Protect His Majesty. Duan Yu smiled faintly, but his expression remained indifferent as he said, No need to be nervous. With us here, no firearms can harm us. Rongqing immediately tensed up when he heard this, and he hastily reached out to grab his willful emperor. He knew this guy too well. If there was any danger, he would rely on his skill and boldness to take the lead and leave all his subordinates behind. However, just as he reached out, he saw His Majesty leaping into the air as expected. With a flash step, everyone felt their vision blur. They saw a dagger glowing with purple light in his hand, and he had already teleported from their midst to the group of corpse puppets. Eighth young Master Qi's heart nearly stopped from fright, and his face paled instantly. Rongqing even leaped up, wanting to chase after Duanyu. Unexpectedly, he crashed into a defensive wall with a thump, and a bump formed on his head. He was directly bounced back by a force and fell to the ground. Heavens! Rongqing's handsome face darkened, and he abruptly turned back to glare at Duan Yu's back. This guy was truly incomparably deceitful. He actually added a defensive wall around them to prevent them from following. Julian's face changed color when she saw this, and she anxiously shouted, "Hurry and help." How can he withstand it alone? There are more than a dozen zombies here, so there might be more than a dozen fireglass. Previously, the City of Shadows used 3 ninth-grade fireglass to annihilate a small city and killed more than 1,000 cultivators. This is not a joke. This fireglass is extremely powerful, Zhuyin said anxiously. Yin said anxiously, there might be about 20 pieces of grade 9 flame glass in the entire Shadow City. I'm guessing that there might be fire glass buried in each of these zombies. Boom! A soaring flame instantly interrupted Zhuyian's chatter. Everyone felt that the ground was shaking slightly. Everyone couldn't help but sway left and right along with the shaking of the ground. Rongqing's darkened face turned ashen. She squeezed through a group of soldiers from the 3 continents and charged forward with all her might. However, he was still blocked by the defensive wall in front of him. Fuck! Who could break the defensive barrier set up by a transcendent god? There was a burst of fire outside, and it was impossible to see what was happening. Rongqing's heart sank as she roared. What the fuck are you all doing? Hurry up and work together to break this barrier. Nothing must happen to their willful emperor. Just as everyone was bashing at Duan Yu's defensive wall like headless flies, they heard Mu Feixia exclaim, "Everyone, don't be impatient. Quickly look." Everyone hurriedly turned their heads, and when they saw who it was, their jaws almost fell to the ground. They saw an 8-tailed celestial fox as large as a snowy mountain in the air, swinging its 8 tails left and right as if it was whipping a toy. It sent those crooked zombies flying one by one. Their willful emperor was currently standing on the 8-tailed celestial fox's back, playing with a transparent glass bead in her hand. Completely unharmed, Rongqing breathed a sigh of relief. Chapter 5307. 8th young Master Qi was taken aback and couldn't resist covering his face. Heir presumptive, quickly look. Did His Majesty snatch the fire glass from those zombies? Heir Rong nodded expressionlessly. You're right. Damn, this bizarre His Majesty's actions were truly comical. Those pitiful zombies didn't even have the time to ignite the fire glass before it was snatched away. His Majesty truly deserved to be their family's willful His Majesty to even snatch things from corpses. So dirty. It was unlucky to have been touched by those disgusting zombies. Duan Yu grumbled inwardly as he tossed a handful of colored glass beads into the air. He waved his hand to release a circle of silver flames that enveloped the beads. However, after a short while, he raised his hand and wiped away the flames on the glass bead. Everyone could see very clearly through the barrier. Those originally transparent colored glass beads were now emitting a faint golden glow. Each bead was round and bright, practically reflecting a person's reflection. The city lord's wife, Zhuyin, who was originally worried, silently shut her mouth. Her voice was a bit dry as she said, His Majesty's actions are truly beyond our expectations. Could it be that he had smelted the fire-glazed glass again with his bare hands? From the looks of it, this firearm seemed to be even more resplendent and dazzling after being refined again. Its power was probably far greater than before. Heir Rong and the others involuntarily chuckled. They really wanted to tell this Madame Mu that she wasn't the only one with this idea. They also felt that His Majesty's actions were rather out of line. Duan Yu took out a box and tossed all the colored glass beads inside. That not-so-gentle technique made the onlookers tremble in fear. He was truly the ancestor of playing with fire. He wasn't worried that these things would explode in his hands. After doing all this, Duan Yu tossed the box back into his inner world and leaped into the midst of the zombies. He raised his hand and used the purple shadow dagger to knock on the head of one of the zombies. In a split second, everyone watched as the group of zombies surrounding him suddenly disintegrated into fine powder and dissipated with the wind. Duan stood in the midst of the dispersing powder and looked over indifferently. Due to the airflow around his body, the scattered dust didn't touch his body at all. From the beginning to the end, he was very calm and collected, as if he hadn't killed more than a dozen corpse puppets and resolved the crisis of the fire-glazed glass. The mouths of Julian and the others immediately opened wide. For a moment, they did not know what to say. Heaven and earth could bear witness that this was the first time they had seen someone use the strength of one hand to turn a group of corpse puppets into ashes. The worst thing was that a powerful firearm like the fire-glazed glass was like a toy in his hands. He could do whatever he wanted with it. A trace of bitterness once again surfaced in Julian's heart as she shook her head speechlessly. What kind of powerful enemy did the City of Shadows provoke? Mu Jinghong was too confident in herself. Little did they know that the world had long since belonged to those astonishingly talented young people. Duan Yu removed the defensive barrier and waved his hand. His gaze landed on Julian, and his lips curled into a faint smile. "Madame Mu, please." Julian's heart relaxed slightly. She was very clear that this meant that His Majesty had accepted her surrender and was willing to spare her children. She couldn't help but rejoice in her heart. If she hadn't made the prompt decision to swear the heavenly Dao blood oath, who knew how long she would have to explain before the other party would believe her? Chapter 53:08. Thank goodness, everything did not turn for the worse. Julian nodded lightly in Duan Yu's direction. She bowed respectfully and formally. "Please follow me." Duan Yu nodded and turned to instruct Rong Qing before transferring 1,000 people to follow Julian. Rong turned to instruct the members of the Heavenly Fate Army. "Everyone, put on your special defensive spirit clothing and follow me in. We will exterminate all the zombies in the city." In an instant, the sounds of battle shook the heavens and earth. Tens of thousands of soldiers and horses followed Crown Prince Rong's group. Under the guidance of Yi and the others, they all lined up and entered the City of Eagles. At the same time, Mu Jinghong led the remaining disciples into Eagle City's underground passageway and sent people up to scout for information. Mu Xiaoshu nervously twisted her handkerchief and hesitated for a long time before asking timidly, "Father, should we leave this place in advance?" Mu Jinghong angrily paced back and forth. How could he be in the mood to pacify his nervous daughter? He grumpily reprimanded, "We haven't even cleared out the items in the treasury yet, and we're leaving now? Are you going to hand over the foundation of the City of Shadows that we have built for so many years to someone else? But the situation outside is so grim. If we don't leave earlier," Mu Xiaoshu sobbed and choked on her words. Mu Jinghong impatiently waved his hand. "Enough, don't say any more." This daughter was truly useless. She only knew how to sob whenever she encountered a problem. What else could she do? She did not have the slightest ability to share his burden. Seeing Mu Xiaoxue crying pitifully, Kong Yaofa quickly hugged her shoulders and softly comforted her. "Younger sister Xiaoxue, don't worry too much. It should be fine. I also brought more than 300 people with me, so we can hold them off for a while. As long as City Lord Mu cleans up most of the things in the treasury, we will be able to leave. Don't worry, younger sister Xiaoxue, I will protect you even if I have to risk my life." Mu Xiaoxu nodded gratefully at Kong Yaofa and smiled through her tears. "Thank you, Brother Kong." She twisted the handkerchief in her hand as she stood on the side and watched her old father pacing back and forth in the passageway. Her heart was also in turmoil. Weren't the things in the vault just worldly possessions? At a time like this, her father still wanted money more than his own life. He insisted on collecting all the money and didn't cherish his daughter's life. Judging from her father's expression just now, he seemed to be complaining about her for not being able to help at all. At the thought of this, Mu Xiaoxue felt frustrated again. Mu Jinghong paced for a while and then heard a flurry of footsteps. 2 disciples limped over, dragging their broken limbs. Their faces were covered in blood, and their faces were filled with panic. When they saw him, they hurriedly went forward and cried, City Lord. City Lord. When Mu Jinghong saw her weeping appearance, he was filled with anger. What happened? Mu Jinghong scolded in a deep voice. His face immediately became gloomy, and his eyes revealed traces of cold light. The two disciples didn't dare to hide anything and cried out, City Lord, Madam, eldest young master, and eldest young miss brought his majesty and his people to the underground vault and killed many of our brothers. What? Mu Jinghong only felt his vision turn black. His footsteps were a little unstable, and his entire person was a little dizzy. That woman, she actually dared to do this. Chapter 5309. Good Juyin, good Mu Feixia, good Mu Yuanying. Mu Jinghong's eyes were filled with ferocious, killing intent. He was on the verge of exploding with rage. City Lord, let's leave quickly. There are too many of them. There are tens of thousands of them. The two disciples continued to cry, We can't beat them. We can't beat them. One of the disciples cried as he crawled towards Mu Jinghong's feet. He cried out mournfully, City Lord, the situation has changed. Now there is fire everywhere. The entire city has been engulfed in flames. Under the leadership of Madame, they dug up all the treasures in the treasury and took everything away. Even some of the treasures that we had painstakingly stored in our inner world and spiritual weapons were all forced to hand over. Mu Jinghong's vision turned black, and he felt a little lightheaded. A trace of a smile flashed across the eyes of the crying guard who was crawling on the ground. In the blink of an eye, he suddenly rose up. Under the stunned gaze of everyone, he raised the dagger in his hand and stabbed it into Mu Jinghong's stomach. Mu Jinghong was not on guard at all. After being stabbed and stabbed, he twisted the dagger clockwise. He only felt a sharp pain in his stomach. He looked down and saw that his stomach had been cut open and his intestines had been cut open. The guard who launched the sneak attack was quick and swift, and he ran away smoothly. After he succeeded in his attack, he quickly retreated and flew away with a flip of his body. In the next moment, he had inexplicably appeared hundreds of feet away. He immediately escaped through the tunnel. Another guard crawled back a few steps. Just as he was about to get up and slip away, he was killed on the spot by several disciples of the City of Shadows who reacted in time. Blood flowed all over the ground. Mu Jinghong was helped to sit down. He pressed his abdomen with one hand. He was in so much pain that big beads of sweat appeared on his head. Mu Xiaoxue was so panicked that she almost fainted. She cried at the side and cried mournfully, Father, Father, Father. Good plan. Mu Jinghong's forehead was full of cold sweat. He stretched out his hand to cover the wound on his abdomen and gritted his teeth. City Lord, City Lord. Gu Yishuan hurriedly took the opportunity to step forward to show his loyalty. He took out the healing medicine from his inner world and handed it to Mu Jinghong. City Lord, please take this hemostatic pill first. Mu Jinghong opened her mouth and swallowed it. Her face became very pale because of the loss of blood. Wasn't he the emperor of Tsang Prefecture? How could their methods be so despicable? They had captured a disciple from the City of Shadows and sent him to lead the way. Then, when he was unprepared, he got the fake attendants of the City of Shadows to stab him viciously. Mu Jinghong glared angrily at the disciple who had led the way, who was already dead on the ground. With a wave of his hand, he sent out a ball of divine power at the disciple, crushing his bones and scattering his ashes. Mu Xiaoxue shuddered and shrank away from Kong Yaofa. Kong Yaofa was very happy. He hugged Mu Xiaoxue's slender waist and comforted her softly. Don't worry about little sister Xiaoxue. Kong Yaofa looked up at Mu Jinghong and said in a deep voice, Uncle Mu, now that our location has been exposed, I reckon that soon that group of despicable and shameless people will take advantage of the victory to chase after us. The most important thing now is that we don't care about anything and quickly get out of here. Mu Jinghong was naturally very unwilling. He even hated the new master of the River of Forgetfulness, Long Yun. Chapter 5310. He also bore a grudge against the second young master of the Tianyan family. These two had probably already received the news that His Majesty of its Song Prefecture was going to send troops to attack the entire City of Shadows. However, these two had nothing to do with it, and only came to inform him at noon that the Song Prefecture had sent troops to approach. He had no time to prepare and transfer his assets. Therefore, he could only pick up the important things in this underground vault and stuff them all in his inner world. He had asked people to take the few storage spiritual weapons and hurriedly went to the vault to pack some things. In the end, he was intercepted midway. Now that he thought of the materials in his underground vault and the dozen or so pieces of level 9 fireglass he had stored there, he felt very uncomfortable. He could only blame himself for having too few storage spiritual weapons on him. His inner world was only about 5 cubic meters, so he couldn't stuff many things. What a pity! What a pity! The things he had collected over the years were all gone one day and benefited others. He really couldn't accept it. Father! Mu Xiaoxue saw that he had been beating his chest and stamping his feet for a long time without saying a word. She couldn't help but call out, "Father!" In the current situation, she had to leave whether she wanted to or not. Was she really going to stay here and wait for death? Fight with others head-on? She was still young and hadn't found a suitable husband to marry. Naturally, she didn't intend to die. Mu Xiaoxue thought so and couldn't help but urge again, "Father, let's go. Go, go, go. Do you think I don't want to go?" Mu Jinghong shouted angrily. Suddenly, she vented all her anger. "Isn't it all because of the stupid things you did? Everyone in the City of Shadows has to suffer because of you." Mu Xiaoxue's eyes widened in an instant, and her face was full of disbelief. Father actually blamed her? And on such an occasion, in front of so many people, he reprimanded her without giving her any face? Mu Xiaoxue immediately cried out, covering her small mouth with a handkerchief and sobbing softly. Gui Xuan was so distressed that his eyes turned red. Just as he was about to walk forward, he saw that damn fat pig hugging his beloved junior sister with his pig hands and gently comforting her. "Sister Xiaoxue, don't cry." When there was nothing to do, Mu Jinghong was reluctant to raise her voice in front of such a delicate and weak daughter. But now, at this moment of life and death, he was so angry that he was half dead. How could he have the mood to care about his daughter's feelings? Immediately, he complained, "If it weren't for you, who foolishly provoked the crown princess of the divine land and made me have to expose my identity and save you, I wouldn't have been so stupid. How did such a thing happen? Do you know? The Emperor of Song Prefecture mobilized all the elite troops above the God Realm in the 3 prefectures." Mu Jinghong rebuked angrily. "If you weren't brainless, how could such a thing happen?" As he spoke, he felt a sharp pain in his abdomen. He hurriedly pressed it with his hand as he sucked in a breath of cold air. His internal organs were damaged, so it was natural for him to feel pain. However, where did that chill come from? Could it be that the person who injured him had smeared some sort of cold poison on his dagger? Just as he was thinking, a loud rumble came from the entrance of the passageway. It was as if someone had forcefully removed the invisible door at the entrance of the passageway. A gust of cold wind blew in from the outside, causing everyone to shiver uncontrollably. "City Lord Mu, long time no see." Chapter 53:11. Duan Yu entered the passageway with a smile that was like a spring breeze caressing one's face. Mu Xiaoxue twisted a handkerchief as her panicked gaze lingered on Duan Yu several times. It couldn't be helped. This Song Prefecture's young monarch was truly handsome and outstanding, making people want to take a few more glances. Unfortunately, the other party only glanced at her without any change in expression before turning to her father, Mu Jinghong. Mu Xiaoxue tightened her grip on the handkerchief. However, Mu Jinghong quickly stood up and threw out his stairway talisman without a second word. He angrily shouted, "Let's go." They watched as the group disappear with a whoosh. Duan Yu couldn't resist blinking and turned to tell Rong Qing, inform that swindler that they've gone back again. Vassal Prince Rong couldn't resist twitching his mouth as he muttered inwardly, "You keep calling the crown prince of the divine province a swindler, but you yourself are also a complete swindler. This stairway talisman was extremely interesting. Not only could it teleport a long distance, but it could also set a fixed return point. His swindler majesty had already calculated that once this old city lord used the stairway talisman, the fixed return point would most likely be the City of Shadows or the imperial capital's Longyan. After all, he had brought Mu Xiaoxue from the imperial capital's Longyan to the City of Shadows headquarters in a flash last time. Now that he was on the brink of death, he definitely wouldn't hesitate to head to the fixed transfer point. Otherwise, how could he shake them off in the shortest time possible? At this moment, Mu Jinghong's group was ascending the stairway talisman and leaving through the air. Just as Duan Yu predicted, they directly set a fixed return point to the imperial capital's Longyan. Unfortunately, just as they arrived at Longyan City, they barely managed to catch their breath. They were startled by an angry shout of "Here!" The sound of hurried and orderly footsteps fell heavily on everyone's hearts. Mu Jinghong covered her bleeding abdomen with one hand and turned her head back with a horrified expression. His heart couldn't help but skip a beat. A troop of armored soldiers wielding sabers and swords appeared at the entrance of the alley. The leader was dressed in a black robe and had his hair tied up by a jade crown. He smiled at him. "We meet again, City Lord Mu. I trust you have been well since we last met." Mu Jinghong was extremely shocked. She covered the wound on her abdomen and unexpectedly took 2 steps back. Mu Xiaoxue was so scared that her face turned pale. She clutched the corner of her shirt tightly and looked at the man in front of her. The Crown Prince of the Divine Land led a team and stood at the entrance of the alley with a smile on his face. Handsome and spirited like pine and jade. However, it was this peerlessly beautiful man who stared at them with eyes as cold as a ferocious beast from hell. There was no trace of warmth in his eyes at all. There was only mockery and ridicule. "You, all of you, you guys schemed against me." Mu Jinghong finally understood. These two actually joined hands to trap him. He looked down at the stairway talisman in his hand and rubbed it hard. "Don't run, City Lord Mu." Prince Imo smiled and said, "The talisman energy on the stairway talisman can only be transferred once in a short period of time. You can't run now. There's no need to try again, City Lord Mu." Ha ha ha. The red marks in Mu Jinghong's eyes were about to shatter. "I really didn't expect this." He looked coldly at Prince Imo and said in a low voice, "Your Majesty of Sangzhou, Crown Prince of the Divine Land, you two actually joined hands to scheme against me." Chapter 53:12. I'm really flattered. Mu Jinghong covered the wound on his stomach and glared at Mo Lien with gritted teeth. "How did you happen to appear here?" Mu Jinghong was puzzled. After all, although he used the stairway talisman to come to Longyan, the capital, but the place where he appeared, such as the narrow alley in front of him, was not a predetermined place. The stairway talisman's directional location was not so accurate. He only went to a large area. Although it was set in Longyan City, he could have stopped in any direction. But why did Prince Imo appear here immediately? "Don't you know?" Prince Imo asked in surprise. Longyan City's city defense array was activated a few months ago. This great city barrier formation can effectively defend against enemies from the outside. That's not the most important thing. What's important is that it has an extraordinary function. Mo Lien smiled faintly and stared at Mu Jinghong's wonderful old face. She said with a smile, "As long as I'm in this city, I could go anywhere with the array disk." Of course, he would not explain very clearly why he discovered Mu Jinghong and the others at the first moment and why he came in such a timely manner. That was because the entire Longyan City was filled with demonic eyes that could see through everything. Once Mu Jinghong and the others appeared, Jojo would immediately receive the exact location information. Little Tree Chio did not mind those eyes that covered the sky and made people's hair stand on end. After all, these eyes were indeed useful. "Impossible. Then how did you discover us at the first moment?" Mu Jinghong was conflicted about this question, but it was impossible for Mo Lien to answer him. Mu Xiaoxue saw the tall and handsome man glance indifferently at the people behind him. Immediately, A tide of soldiers surged out from behind him. Without saying a word, they waved their blades and stabbed at them fiercely. Miss Mu was so frightened that her face turned pale, and she screamed repeatedly. Mu Jinghong covered his wound with one hand and held his saber with the other to fight. But when he used his strength, he realized that something was wrong. Not only did he feel dizzy, but there was also a bitter chill coming from his wound. It was so cold that he couldn't help but shiver. Even the saber in his hand was almost unsteady. Damn it, what kind of cold poison did that Sangzhou guard impersonate from the City of Shadows smear on his dagger that even he couldn't withstand it? Despicable. Mu Jinghong shouted angrily. He ordered his men to come forward and attack. The Hades court guards quickly surrounded them. Their movements were swift and vigorous. Every one of them looked calm, as though they were chopping vegetables and melons. In just a few moves, they killed more than half of the City of Shadows disciples who looked emaciated. Mu Jinghong and the others secretly complained in their hearts. The two from Sangzhou and the Divine Land were too vicious. This was especially true for the remaining disciples, who complained incessantly. Back in the City of Shadows, Long Yin, who had been beaten into a pulp by the Tsang Prefecture's emperor, had to flee all the way to the imperial capital with the help of the Stairway Talisman. However, as soon as they set foot on Long Yan's land, they were surrounded and killed by the crown prince of the Divine Province. Their lives were too bitter. It was not a normal kind of bitterness. Mu Xiaoxue shivered as she hid behind Kong Yaofa. She let Kong Yaofa hug her as they dodged countless sharp blades. But Kong Yaofa had to protect her, so he could only use one hand. In front of the well-trained Hades court guards, he could not last more than 100 moves. Chapter 53:13. After 100 moves, Kong Yaofa was at a disadvantage. He couldn't even take care of himself. One of the dark court guards swung his saber at Kong Yaofa's chest. Mu Xiaoxue cried out and pushed Kong Yaofa away. She scrambled away from Kong Yaofa's side. She couldn't see where she was going, so she knocked her head on the wall of the alley. She was so dizzy that she saw stars. Blood also seeped out of her forehead. Mu Xiaoxue was shocked and scared. She couldn't stop screaming. Gu Yixuan panicked. He shouted, "Little junior sister," and rushed forward. However, he was forced back by the Hades court guard swords. Brother Kong, senior brother Gu. Mu Xiaoxue looked for protection with tears in her eyes. However, she saw a tall Hades court guard raising his saber and swinging it at her head. Mu Xiaoxue cried out. Her life was over. She closed her eyes and fainted just like that. When she fell, the Hades court guard couldn't stop in time and stepped on her. A crisp crack came from her calf. Mu Xiaoxue shuddered in pain. However, she didn't dare to open her eyes. She heard the sound of wind and the sound of fighting from both sides. At a time like this, Mu Jinghong and the others could only fight to the death. However, compared to the strong Hades court guards who were waiting for their prey, Mu Jinghong and the others were already exhausted from the journey. After being ambushed, more than half of the City of Shadows disciples died at the hands of the Hades court guards. The remaining few dodged left and right, resisting the attacks bitterly. Mu Jinghong was forced into a corner. Two Hades court guards swung their swords at her. Naturally, she couldn't hold on to the saber in her hand. It fell to the ground with a clang. Mu Xiaoxue lay on the ground and pretended to be dead. She cried silently and didn't dare to open her eyes. Suddenly, she felt a gust of wind blow past her face. In the next second, a heavy corpse fell on top of her. The corpse's face was right on top of her little face. That cold nose was pressed against her face. Mu Xiaoxue's heart almost collapsed. She endured the nausea and dizziness. She opened her eyes wide in shock and saw the corpse's half-closed eyelids on her face. Mu Xiaoxue really fainted this time, completely out of fright. Huffed. In the private room of the tea house across the alley, Princess Wushuang almost spat out a mouthful of tea. Princess Wushuang hurriedly took out a handkerchief and wiped her mouth. She said with a mocking expression, "My eldest brother is really mean. He actually kicked a dead person on a Miss Mu. Look at how scared Miss Mu is." Ha ha. Xiao Mu held the warm cup and cast a glance at the bustling alley across from her. Mu Jinghong, such a shrewd person, actually stumbled at Mu Qingya's hands. It can be said that everything has its vanquisher. If Mu Jinghong had not courted her own death, she would not have been in such a miserable state. But since he had a connection with Tian Yun, then he deserved to die. Sister-in-law, how are you going to deal with Miss Mu? Princess Wu Shuang asked excitedly. She saw that the Hades court guards did not do anything to Mu Xiaoxue. She knew that they had received orders. Her sister-in-law must have made some strange arrangements. Arbor was silent for a moment. Then he said slowly, if I use a blunt knife to cut that person open inch by inch, she won't feel any pain. But if I use a blunt knife to cut that person's most beloved thing inch by inch, she probably won't be able to take it, Arbor thought. Princess Wu Shuang suddenly shut her mouth and shuddered in her heart. Chapter 53:14. She always felt that her sister-in-law was like this. When she stared blankly into the distance, there seemed to be a dark whirlpool swirling in the depths of her eyes. This Mu Xiaoxue was going to be in big trouble. When Mu Xiaoxue woke up again, she only felt a pungent smell of blood around her. His body was weighed down heavily by the weight. She tried her best to suppress the scream in her throat, stretched out her 2 arms, and pushed away the corpse on top of her. Mu Xiaoxue gasped for breath and looked around in panic. Corpses all over the ground. She only felt dizzy and hurriedly reached out to support herself against the wall. Her legs were weak and her whole body was sore. She barely supported herself and did not fall to the ground. Mu Xiaoxue looked at the corpses with a blank expression. She did not see her father, nor did she see Kong Yaofa or Gui Xuan. Where did they all go? Was he going to abandon her just like that? Mu Xiaoxue's heart was full of anger and hatred. Just because she did not have the slightest bit of cultivation and spiritual power, she was just abandoned on the street like this? All of them had kung fu, so they were able to escape in times of crisis. Where's the man who said he would protect her with his life? He abandoned her in times of danger. Mu Xiaoxue was furious and came out of the alley in a daze. Looking at the sky, it was already late at night. She trembled as she came out of the alley. She was wearing thin clothes and had no money. In the cold winter night, it was difficult for her to move. Mu Xiaoxue was thirsty, hungry, and panicked. She ran around the street like a headless fly. The faint moonlight elongated her bleak figure. From afar, she suddenly heard neat footsteps coming from the corner of the street. Mu Xiaoxue shrank back in fear and hid under a stall by the roadside. She saw a group of people running over, holding burning torches. They pointed to the front and asked, "Did you find her?" "No. Keep looking. There is an order from above. If you catch Miss Mu Xiaoxue, you will be rewarded with 5,000 spirit coins." Mu Xiaoxue quickly covered her mouth and nose, not daring to make a sound. It wasn't until the team had run far away that she finally crawled out from under the stall like a rat crossing the street. She crawled and hid in a dark alley next to her. Little did she know that after the team passed by, someone in the team swept a glance at the place where she was hiding, and the corner of his mouth curled up mockingly. There were orders from the higher-ups to chase after Miss Mu Xiaoxue nonstop for the next 2 days. She didn't have the slightest bit of free time, running around and hiding for her life, but he just didn't catch her. He kept her hanging by the thread, constantly scaring her. Although they didn't understand why the higher-ups would give such an order, the soldiers just needed to do their jobs and obey the orders. 2 days later, Mu Xiaoxue, who had gone mad and was filthy and smelly, felt that she had finally escaped from the pursuing soldiers after going through all kinds of hardships and dangers. With her intelligence and wit, she returned to Changle Villa, which she had not seen for a long time, with tears streaming down her face. This Changle courtyard was where the second young master had imprisoned her mother. She used to hate him, but now she loved him as much as she loved him. As long as she could find an organization, she would be able to get out of her current predicament. She had been hungry for at least 3 days, thirsty and hungry. If she hadn't forced herself to drink some dirty water from the canal last night, she probably wouldn't have been able to hold on until she came back. Yuba, who had been following behind her, glanced at the words Changle Villa, and then disappeared into the night. Chapter 53:15. Mu Xiaoxue flung herself against the door and pounded on it. However, the originally tightly shut door was directly pushed open by her. Mu Xiaoxue did not notice and stumbled into the suddenly opened door, knocking her head on the ground. She did not care about how painful her body was and hurriedly looked up. Changle Courtyard, which had always been brightly lit, was now dark and gloomy. Not a single person could be seen in the vicinity. Only the whistling of the wind could be heard coming from the central courtyard. It was as if ghosts were wailing and wolves were howling as it blew through the darkness. Mu Xiaoxue almost went crazy. She jumped up crazily, her slightly trembling legs fluttering as she rushed in through the door. She tripped on the threshold of the courtyard and barely managed to stabilize herself. When she rushed into the hall and found that there was no one, she rushed to the backyard and found that there was still no one. Mu Xiaoxue was completely stunned. She could only madly rush to the kitchen in the backyard, wanting to see what food was inside. However, when she stepped into the kitchen, she only saw 2 or 3 fat rats squeaking as they hopped past. She was so scared that her little face turned pale and she screamed. There was no one. Did everyone in Changle Courtyard leave? Second young master and the rest were not there. Not to mention hot soup, there was not even any leftovers in the kitchen. There was not a single grain of rice in the rice jar. Half of the cold steamed bread on the stove was gone. And when she opened the pot, it was empty. There was nothing. This made Mu Xiaoxue, who had been hungry for 3 days and was dizzy, completely lose her mind. The current her did not have the slightest bit of elegance and beauty. She was like a hysterical shrew, standing in the courtyard and screaming, "Mother, mother! Second young master, where did you all go?" There was no one, there was no one. It was as if she was the only one left in the whole world. Helplessness, panic, and fear filled Mu Xiaoxue's heart, causing her to scream uncontrollably. "Idiot! Do you want to lure everyone here?" Suddenly, a cold voice came from behind her. Mu Xiaoxue turned her head in surprise and joy, and with a plop, she knelt down in front of the person. "Home Master Gong, save me, Home Master Gong." The ghost-face Home Master stared at her with a faint light in his eyes. "Home Master Gong, please take me to see my mother, or a second young master, or eldest young master will be fine too." Mu Xiaoxue was anxious to find someone to protect her, and she sobbed. "I want to become stronger. I want to accept organizational restructuring." She was no longer willing to live like a rat on the street. He was chased by people all day long and wandered the streets penniless. Looking at the half-meat bun in the beggar's hand, he swallowed his saliva greedily, but did not dare to reach out to snatch it, because she couldn't beat him at all. If she tried to snatch it, she would only be beaten up. Ghostface Home Master's eyes flickered as she recalled what second young master had said. The little fellow wanted to deal with her. This vicious and merciless little thing wanted to drive him to a dead end. Song Feng, cooperate with her. The Ghostface Home Master Gong Song Feng looked coldly at the weak woman prostrating at his feet, without the slightest ripple in his eyes. He reached into his pocket and took out a small black porcelain bottle, tossing it in front of her as if he was giving alms. He said indifferently, "If you want to become stronger, swallow it. No one can help you. Only you can help yourself." Gong Song Feng said coldly. Mu Xiaoxue prostrated herself on the ground and raised her hands with a humble expression, trembling as she took the porcelain bottle. Chapter 53:16. Arbor gazed out the window gloomily. She propped up her chin with her 2 small hands, and her pair of dark eyes stared at the bright starry sky in a trance. When Mo Lien finished bathing and came out, he caught sight of her impatient appearance. She walked up and looked out the window. "Jojo, what are you looking at? Yubak came by just now." The little stoic propped up her chin and looked back at him. She said gloomily, "Mu Xiaoxue was forced to return to the resort. I reckon she will forcefully request to accept Tianyun's transformation." After these few days of wandering and suffering accumulated to a certain degree, something inconceivable would definitely happen. Mooching ya. I want you to be in so much pain that you wish you were dead. The crown prince smiled faintly and circled her waist, pulling her into his embrace. He suddenly exclaimed, "Jojo, you've put on weight again." The little stoic glared at him, and her thoughts were immediately pulled back by him. The crown prince chuckled and lowered his head to kiss her small face. "It's good that you're fat, my darling. You're even prettier when you're fat." Arbor sighed. "I know you want to make me happy." But this topic was changed too abruptly. The little stoic extended a fist and knocked him. "Then are you happy or not?" Emolien gazed at her with bright eyes and pulled her over to bite her lightly. "Jojo, you've been smiling at me more recently." The little stoic looked at him expressionlessly. "You're dreaming, right?" Emolien pursed his lips and pulled her over to kiss her again and again. "Heartless, heartless. Feel it. You've cut a hole in my chest, and it's pouring in air. My heart hurts like hell." Arbor's original gloominess was inexplicably swept away by his disturbance. She grumpily pulled out her hand and messed up his hair, messing it up like a bird's nest. Only then did she burst out in laughter. Emolien's eyes lit up. She hugged her and said gently, "Jojo, Jojo, hit me, hit me." "Why would I hit you for no reason?" Arbor glared at him, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. "As long as you're happy." Arbor stared at him, stroked his face, put his little head against his forehead, and said softly, "I forced her to the point where she couldn't escape. I forced her to go crazy. Let her go back and find a mutation pill to consume. Am I very bad?" "Yes, very bad." Prince Emo nodded without hesitation. Arbor glared at him again. Prince Emo smiled and pulled her closer. He pecked her lips and said in a low voice, "I'm worse than you. I crippled Mu Jinghong and Gui Xuan and threw them into the dungeon. Tomorrow, I will personally lead people to raid the entire Gu family. Don't you think I'm bad? Mischievous, just right for my Joe. We're a match made in heaven, unparalleled in the world." Crown Prince Emo tilted his head and lightly scratched her small face. "You're bad, and I'm worse. This is a perfect match." Arbor pursed her lips and couldn't hold it in. She glared at him and laughed again. "Scoundrel, isn't that right? I'm the worst in the world. With me in front to block for you. Don't worry, the first bad person definitely won't be you." Arbor didn't want to bother with him anymore. He was so indecent all day and only knew how to make her happy. "Did you and Duan you secretly contact each other again? Otherwise, why would he inform Sapling in advance that Mu Jinghong was coming to Dragonflame City so that Sapling could see more of Devil Pupil Shadow?" Crown Prince Emo replied innocently, "I didn't. Why would I contact him?" The little stoic pinched his face hard. "Big liar." Chapter 53:17. How is he a big swindler? Prince Emo gazed innocently at his wife. He reached out and touched her stomach. "Wife, your stomach." Before he could finish speaking, he felt a sudden force jolt his hand away. The young couple looked at each other in dismay. Arbor pacified baby Emo with his hand on her stomach. "It really doesn't like you." In this regard, Crown Prince Emo was even more innocent. Look at who it likes. Other than the little stoic, it seemed like it would jolt away anyone who touched it 2 days ago. It even jolted Her Majesty the Empress away. That disdain was truly breathtaking. Hence, the Crown Prince felt that this wasn't the problem of being a father at all. There was something wrong with this baby. Upon seeing this, the little stoic said in deadly earnest, "Your baby is like you. You can't touch it." The Crown Prince, "Wife, you can't be like this." He hugged her and exclaimed, "You can't blame every flaw on your husband. For example, was it his fault that his wife forcefully framed him for gluttony?" Arbor ignored him and stroked baby Emo while muttering, "Baby, you can't be like your father." Emolien didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He lifted her up and lowered his head to bite her head. "Do you want to go with hubby to raid your family tomorrow?" The little stoic thought about it and nodded in all seriousness. "Since husband has invited me, then I'll reluctantly go and take a look." Emolien almost laughed out loud. The next day, the imperial court announced that the Gu family had joined the Heavenly Fate Empire, causing an uproar in the entire capital. Every patrician family felt insecure and sent people to scout the situation. When the attendants reported to the family heads that the crown prince had led people to raid the Gu family early in the morning, the family heads started to feel uneasy. How could the Gu family be raided just like that? They had never heard of anyone from the Gu family colluding with the Heavenly Fate Empire. However, this time, it was said that an important pawn of the Heavenly Fate Empire was caught on the spot, and the Gu family's young sir, Gu Yishuan, was also among them. After confirming the identity of the young master of the Gu family, Tian Yun, the entire Gu family was implicated by this brother. All the aristocratic families in the capital began to secretly investigate the identities of their disciples. Judging from the imperial court's swift and decisive style and their unrelenting attitude towards the Heavenly Fate Emperor, the situation would only become more and more tense. The patriarchs were all afraid that there would be one or two disciples of the Heavenly Fate sect hiding in their homes. At that time, they would not be able to defend themselves and implicate their families. Therefore, they secretly investigated in secret and were quite careful. The search of the Gu family was very fast. They went to search in the morning, and in the afternoon, they put all the boxes of things into the national treasury. The patriarchs of the various aristocratic families secretly met up and asked each other for information. It was needless to say that they were nervous. The little stoic followed her husband to ransack the Gu residence. After rummaging left and right, they also found some things, so this trip was not made in vain. After checking the Gu family, it was still early. The two of them planned to go to the newly opened snack shop nearby and buy a pack of snacks to eat on the way. In the end, as soon as they walked into the newly opened snack shop, they saw the Prince of Zheng, Mo Shikong, walking towards them while holding a graceful woman's arm. When Mo Shikong saw Mo Lien and her husband, his expression immediately darkened, and he almost failed to adjust his expression in time. Fortunately, he reacted quickly and immediately changed his expression, forcing out a stiff smile. I didn't expect to encounter His Highness the Crown Prince and the Crown Princess here. Arbor also didn't expect to see these two loathsome people here, and he pursed his small lips. Chapter 53:18. Mo Shikong was embracing the beautiful concubine, Madame Lin. When that woman saw the little crown princess, her expression involuntarily stiffened, as if recalling the little stoic's blunt expression when they first met. Her gaze inadvertently flitted over Arbor's belly, and jealousy flashed through her eyes. She walked up and curtsied with a smile. "This concubine greets your highness and the crown princess." She was also pregnant, but the child she gave birth to had completely different statuses. Regardless of whether the crown princess gave birth to a boy or a girl, they would be His Highness the Crown Prince's first legitimate son and legitimate daughter. What about her? Even if she gave birth to a son for His Highness, he would be adopted by the princess consort. It was usually difficult for her to even see her son. Although His Highness doted on her, he never asked about the inner court's matters. No matter how she cried and threw tantrums, he advocated sending the child to the princess consort to raise. He even gloriously told her that this was for the child's own good. He said something about the child following his legitimate mother since he was young, so he could have a good future when he grew up. Madame Lin was so angry that she wanted to vomit blood. The child she painstakingly risked her life to give birth to was given to someone else. She was naturally unwilling. Now that she saw the little crown princess, her eyes suddenly swiveled. Just as she was about to speak, Prince Zheng tugged at her. Mo Lien couldn't be bothered to watch their little movements and said to Mo Shikong, "I heard that brother Prince Zheng gave birth to Lin a month ago. Congratulations, congratulations." Mo Shikong responded with a fake smile and cupped his hands. "You flatter me. You flatter me." His Highness the Crown Prince is the one who is overjoyed. The Crown Princess being pregnant is a joyous occasion for the entire kingdom. Mo Lien nodded repeatedly. She held the little Crown Princess' hand and said proudly, of course. Mo Shikong was instantly at a loss for words. Fuck, I was just exchanging pleasantries with you. Yet you answered so smoothly. This tsundere attitude really made one's balls hurt. What's wrong with being a little humble? Madame Nei Lin saw that the atmosphere had abruptly stiffened, so she quickly interrupted with a smile and complimented. The crown princess's child will definitely be a little prince. This concubine congratulates the crown prince consort in advance. Unexpectedly, the little crown princess did not play by the rules. She said expressionlessly, "It's most likely a girl, just like his father." The corners of the crown prince's mouth twitched. He wished he could reach out and touch his wife's little mouth. Fortunately, his wife gave him some face and didn't say in front of outsiders, like his father, loves to eat. Madame Lin looked at this strange crown prince consort and actually couldn't say anything. The crown prince coldly said, "Whether the crown princess gives birth to a boy or a girl, this crown prince will like them both." Mrs. Lin didn't know what to say, so she just stood there awkwardly. Mo Shikong smiled to ease the atmosphere. It's better to meet by chance than by invitation. Why don't Big Brother treat us to a cup of tea on the second floor? Before the crown prince could answer, the little crown princess shook her head with a serious expression. "King Zheng, you're a step too late. We've already invited Wu Shuang for tea." Mo Shikong. Prince Mo was secretly amused. He nodded and said, "That's true. Brother King Zheng, Wu Shuang invited us husband and wife yesterday." The flesh on Mo Shikong's face trembled slightly. He suddenly smiled and said, "Oh, I also heard that Wu Shuang and the third young master of the Fu clan are getting married next month. Then I should find time to go to the king of Zhenyuan's residence and congratulate them. Big Brother." Su Shitao rushed overexcitedly. He suddenly stopped in his tracks and stared at Arbor as if he had seen a ghost. He subconsciously hid behind his big brother. Chapter 53:19. Why are you here? Su Shitao revealed a terrified expression when she saw Arbor. An ear-piercing shriek almost pierced everyone's eardrums. When King Zheng saw Su Shitao's panicked and fearful expression, as his elder brother, he felt very uncomfortable in his heart. Su Shitao shuddered, as if she had thought of something terrifying. Her eyes widened as she stared blankly at Arbor. This crown princess would beat people up without any explanation. Moreover, she didn't do it herself, and randomly found a mechanical puppet to fix them. Words couldn't describe her viciousness. Seeing her, Su Shitao recalled that she had recuperated in bed for more than a month before she could get out of bed and walk. She wasn't the most unlucky one. The unlucky one was that second miss of Count Huainan's estate, Feng Mingwei. The emperor ordered her to be sent to the nunnery, and she still couldn't return. That wasn't it. She seemed to have heard that second miss had returned and even caused a ruckus at the Qiao estate. As a result, she was sent to the nunnery a second time by this vicious and merciless crown princess. She didn't know if she could return in the short term. When she thought of this, Su Shitao couldn't help but feel apprehensive. Right now, she was very clear that she absolutely could not offend this crown prince consort. This person's temper was so terrible that she might be sent to the nunnery as well if things went wrong. If she was locked up in the nunnery for the rest of her life, then her life would truly be over. Then she thought about how she had to swallow her anger and behave meekly every time she saw this stoic face in the future. The nameless rage in her heart couldn't help but erupt. Why did she have to endure this woman's anger everywhere? Her elder brother was Prince Zheng, after all. How could her status be compared to those ordinary noble daughters of officials and aristocratic families? Why did she have to endure this kind of anger? Despite her unwillingness, Su Shitao's actions were incomparably cowardly. When she saw the young crown princess glare at her, she only dared to hide behind Prince Zheng and didn't dare to poke her head out. Prince Zheng was also furious. Seeing his sister so scared, he felt guilty and distressed. He felt guilty that as her elder brother, he couldn't be her pillar of support. He felt sorry for his younger sister. When she saw the expressionless crown princess, she was like a mouse that saw a cat, trembling in fear. Mo Shikong, the Prince of Zheng, felt very uncomfortable in his heart, but he scolded coldly, Tao how can you be so unruly? Hurry up and greet His Highness the Crown Prince and the Crown Princess. At this time, there were more and more people coming and going in the snack shop, but the five of them were blocking the entrance to talk. A few commoners who passed by heard King Zheng say the words Crown Prince. They were so scared that their legs turned to jelly and they fell to their knees. Su Shitao twisted the handkerchief in his hand, stammered as he stepped forward and bowed. G greetings to your highness the Crown Prince. G Crown Princess, Crown Princess. Arbor looked at her expressionlessly and didn't say anything. The Crown Prince said faintly, Brother King Zheng, we have an appointment with Wu Shuang. Please excuse us. Mo Shikong was so angry that his face trembled slightly. He pretended to be calm as he cupped his hands and bowed. Then he watched as the two went in hand to buy several packets of snacks and left without looking back. Su Shitao had been hiding behind Mo Shikong. It was only when the two left the snack shop that he seemed to come alive. He curled his lips and complained to Mo Shikong, Elder brother, I think the two of them don't even care about you. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.